manganese.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 23rd of February 2014. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Robert Kemp.
Yeah.
And Zachary Burgess.
That's all I got. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, that's all you've got.
We've wasted a lot of good stuff in the bit where we weren't even recording a test.
What have you wasted? I didn't even hear it.
No, Dad wasn't left. That was part of it, because we were like, you ready, Dad? Dad? And then it's like, we just hear this noise in the background, like you shutting a door or something. Oh, I guess he's not ready then.
Apparently not. But now we have begun the Saladcast.
No, we were just talking about, like, alternative recording setups, like involving wiring or rigging curtains in create a little cubby hole in the corner of the room to reduce echoes.
You're thinking of making a recording booth out of curtains? I don't think that's like the most professional.
It would dampen enough. Yeah, it would dampen
maybe.
The sound, but
do you think it's a bit too echoey over there then, on your end, or is it?
Well, Zach was complaining about the last episode that it sounded a bit weird because I was too far away from the mic. But if I'm far away from the mic, then the volume is more reasonable for my loudness. Yeah, his voice carries a bit better than mine.
Well, what are the other options? Well, this is fascinating.
Well, we've got my little office room upstairs that has carpeting, so that may be better. But the echo dynamic would be more of that of a bathroom, I suppose, because of the closed walls.
Well, that might be
about as wide as a desk. Yeah. About as wide as a desk and not much deeper. So it's
some people record records in bathrooms, don't they? And that's why you people sing in showers and they think their voice sounds awesome because you get awesome room reverb off the really flat surfaces.
You could probably pull off a pretty good Bowie impression up there.
You think?
That sort of like. I don't know,
was.
Yeah, it's spaceman reverb. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
ground control tonight.
Is that your Bowie? Okay. I can't do Bowie without thinking of the Adam Buxton's Bowie impression. That's why it's impossible. Do you ever get that where you think of the impression first before you think of the actual person?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the problem is now when I think of Bowie, I think of my impression of Bowie.
Oh, no. That's even
which
worse.
is terrible.
Which has nothing to do with Bowie. It's like
Bowie.
It's almost as bad as you thinking of the Russian accent in terms of your Russian accent, which is a bad German accent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be Russian.
It was especially funny during the Russian Olympics. Did you see that?
Walk around going, yeah.
You see the way they ended it with the
you want to call that news? Yeah, the Winter Olympics happened. We cared so much. Hey, I watched quite a bit of it. Yeah. I got into the curling, man.
You're a curling fan.
Oh, not on the telly. No, you had to kind of watch it live. Yeah. But that was probably actually better because live it's not like action packed. That's fine. I quite liked watching it live. It was kind of no get bowls, You see, I thought it would be the least distracting thing I could have on a side monitor whilst coding on the other one. Right,
but
I was wrong.
Yeah. Oh, it's tense.
It is tense. Well, except for like the final of the men's where we sat the approach was just awful.
Classic.
And he knew it, because he was like, every other shot, he was just like, head to the sky, like going, oh, really?
Hail.
But they've been so good up to that point.
Oh, dearie me. Must have just been having a bad day.
They got lucky in like 2 or 3 cases where they were just like, there's no way we should have won that, and then we did. I weren't that bad. I admit, they were no Canadian team. Those guys were a bit shit hot. Ladies were nice, though. And the curly. What?
And the curly. Is that your go-to sport for sexy ladies, curling? Not beach volleyball or anything like that?
I don't think it has been in previous years. I think we got lucky this year. Like, they were acceptable. It's like there's like no... You haven't got terrifying... They are still Scots, like all of them, but they're not as terrifying as Hurry Lady. Well, it's like there's no physical requirements to curling, really. No, I guess. They can be whatever they want. Yeah. They weren't actually... It's weird, because it's normally you get like a gamut, I suppose, of ages, but everyone's pretty young this time, apart from perhaps, was it the Swedish Skip was getting on a bit. But
Do you not rate the Scottish ladies then, Rob?
I did not say that. I'm just saying that, like,
I thought you said they are Scots butts. You were saying it.
Well, no, it's like the previous Scots curling teams we've put forward. They've been kind of terrifying looking, like the sort you'd find behind a bar that would quite happily kick out a burly rugby player.
Okay, fair dues.
Physically. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
I'm sure some people have a thing for that.
What, for kicking out burly rugby players?
Yeah, that's a sport out there.
Yeah. Dear me.
Casual racism, really.
Well, luckily, it won't be long now. Apparently, in Scotland will actually be a different country, so it may be even more legitimate racism because it's not just like another part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but is it legitimate if you're? Because technically, it's Great Britain. So is it legitimate now that I can be sort of derogatory about
It's
Scots,
more legitimate,
or
probably.
stereotypical about the Scots now?
It's like slightly less. It's slightly more legitimate because they're still part of the same country that you're technically a part of.
Yeah, but is the legitimacy of racism based on whether you can get away with it or whether it's actually racism?
It's not
There's
racism.
two different types of legitimacy.
No,
It's xenophobia, like we said, or whatever. I think they're pretty much the same race on average, as in mostly
Yeah, I
white
suppose.
Anglo-Saxon. But yes, I see what you mean. At least they're not Welsh. Sorry. Anyway.
Well, it's like we looked up why like all the curling people are Scots, and it's like it's because there's like
Because that's where the ice is.
well, it's not just. I mean, it's on a simpler basis, they have 22 like places you can do curling. England has one.
So that's basically what I said.
Yeah, they have, but
That's
not
where the
in
ice is.
geographical reason. Ice on the mountain stuff.
That's also true.
Don't know. It might be cheaper to run ice rinks and things.
You don't
Oh,
have
well,
air conditioner as much.
That's probably true too.
It probably doesn't make that much difference in latitude between here. I guess there are a few degrees difference between
I
England
don't even
and
know
Scotland.
where the nearest rink is to us. Like
What,
probably-
ice rink in
Just an
general?
ice rink in general, yeah. Somewhere with ice.
No.
I think there are some
I think
around.
the only
aren't
ones I can think of would have all been roller rinks, which is a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, presumably there's one around London somewhere. You'd think.
Yeah.
There's probably
I
a
mean,
few
it's
in London, I would have thought. But isn't there one at like Milton Keynes or something where you can? I don't know, somewhere in the east, I'm sure. There's no Snowtopia though, or whatever. It's Snowasis. That's it.
Snow Oasis.
That's
yeah.
not going to happen. God damn it.
No,
Anyway,
it's a shame. I wanted
Yeah.
to.
Now there's just a garbage incinerator instead.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Now that that's there, they're probably not. There's probably not.
Nothing's
so-
going to be built there.
No.
Yeah.
Apart from all those houses. That really sucked. I hope they had the planning commission. I hope those weren't two separate things that they just didn't think about it together. Where it's we're building all these new houses. Oh, we're building this garbage incinerator. Hang on a minute, they're right next to each other.
Oh,
Shit.
damn it.
Nobody planned this thing. In fairness, the garbage incinerator isn't that far away from the houses that are already there. You know.
Yeah, but there aren't that many houses in that area. There's all new stuff's coming to that bit.
I guess.
So
It's like they knocked down that giant. There was a giant chimney there for the cement factory, and they shut it. And they're like, "Oh, we'll knock it down. Oh, we better put another chimney there, quick."
well, it's not quite in the same place as the. It's weird. The houses are being built on the cement factory, and the garbage incinerator is being built on basically a bit of wasteland.
Yeah,
that wasn't
was
really
next to
anything
it.
before.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
bit strange.
Blakenham news.
Blakenham, the tiniest.
And that whole area floods all the time, so have fun with that.
Oh, they've been having fun with that recently, with all the
Well,
flooding.
every time I've driven over that bridge recently, that's really the only bit around here that's been flooding, unlike the rest of the country, where everything is underwater most of the time, currently.
Great Blakenham facts. Did you know? You know, Celestion, the speaker manufacturer, they're based in Great Blakenham, and they make
I
the
did
speakers.
know that.
They make the speakers that go in the majority of guitar amplifiers, like all the Marshalls and the Fenders as well. So,
I did also know that.
I think I knew that, which must mean that Dan's told us this before.
so there you go.
No, I-
Fascinating.
Because that's the only
Great
place I could possibly have got that
It-
knowledge from.
I
It's
get
the
the
most
feeling you
rockinest
used to-
place ever.
I get the feeling you used to tell me a lot when we were in year 7 or 8 at Ipswich School because
I
all the
highly doubt
speakers
that.
in
I don't think I would have
speakers
known
in
that.
Great School were Celestians.
They were Celestians. They were from Ipswich, but I didn't know they were in all the guitar amplifiers at the time, which is crazy. All the rock
Maybe.
stars are all playing with like great Blakenham equipment, as in from the 60s till now.
I did have a friend who was sort of into, I don't know, like sound setups and stuff like that. So maybe it could have been him anyway.
Yeah, probably. I don't think they're as well. They're probably not as good for like hi-fi and stuff. In fact, definitely not. But
probably, better for loudness.
Better for loudness. Anyway. Indeed. Right. News?
Get a piercing. I'm going to get a piercing. Here we go. It's a beer sound.
Oh, damn it. I had some beers. I should have got one.
It just seems like that's how a Coke ad should go, isn't it? Like they always open it and someone seems to... or am I just imagining that there's an an exhale. Like, as soon as the can's been opened, like someone's like, that gentle waft of Coca-Cola.
You need to take a sip first, surely. You need to take a drink before you make that sound, don't you? Yeah, there we go.
Okay, then. Well, I don't know, because Coke is fizzy enough. I suppose if you opened it closer to your face, you could get like a bit of the fizz spray going up your nostrils.
What, enough to make you go, ah?
It might be really good.
Do you always open your Coke cans like really close to your face in order to experience this?
Very rarely.
Oh, dearie me.
I wonder if you get close and super close. I suppose even you're lucky enough to angle it right. The bit that goes might go right up your nose.
Is that really what you want?
No.
Maybe.
Maybe it's like...
Maybe if you sniff at exactly the same time.
I don't know, maybe if you're used to like snorting stuff, then Coke is like a way out.
Like the Coke with Coke.
Snorting Coke. Oh dear.
I meant to buy Coke vapor.
I'll never forget that classic Banzai episode where they put Shaun Ryder on one side of a seesaw and then you had to guess how many cans of Coke to put on the other side.
Oh yeah, that was great. How much Coke does it take to get Shaun Ryder high?
It was awesome. Oh dear.
Banzai. Talking about racism.
Yeah, that was highly racist. Oh dear.
Very funny though. Weren't they talking about Takeshi's castle on the Bombcast briefly? Like,
really? What do they call it?
And that they're aware of it.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Takeshi's castle?
That's not what it's
called in the translation.
Oh, really? But that's not what it's actually called, is it? I assume that was just...
Or maybe it is.
That's probably what it's whoever exports that footage calls it. But that could be. It's probably super happy fun time in a castle.
I imagine they don't have Craig Charles narrating it over in America.
I don't know, they might.
Doubt it. I don't know.
Depends if it's re-exported from Europe.
If it's not, I really want to see what it's like.
Yeah. See what their commentators are like.
Oh, probably really irritating. Not that I don't find Craig Charles slightly irritating at times, but he suits it quite well, I guess.
He probably knows about as much as we do.
Yeah.
It's clearly his commentating pedigree from Robot Wars.
Yeah.
So good.
He didn't used to actually commentate on it, though, did they? They got the
he
guy who does
it, so,
football.
Yeah, he did some.
They got the guy who was doing Channel 5's football coverage at the time, who's now sort of everywhere.
He didn't Craig Charles still do like some of the announcing, not like during the matches, like where he was describing the vehicles sometimes?
Wasn't that Philippa Forrester?
No, that was the dumb interviews.
What happened to Philippa Forrester? Robot Wars killed her career.
She had a baby, and then didn't she?
But she was on set like while preggers, wasn't she?
While she was pregnant, yeah. But I think afterwards she was like retired pretty much. I don't think you see her anymore because she was in Tomorrow's World, right? And that shut down, and then Robot Wars, and then she left. But then Robot Wars kind of went downhill anyway, so
could have got hired by the Gadget Show, I suppose.
That's true. She would have probably suited something like that, I suppose. But anyway, I think she retired pretty much.
Shame. Great loss.
Right.
News!
As we mourn the loss of Philippa Forrester. Because I always reminded of her every time because there's an episode of Spaced where they do like a whole Robot Wars thing, and she does a really good, hilarious Philippa Forrester innuendo-filled impression, which is quite funny.
I remember that.
Yes,
that was good.
It was good. So news.
Because
yes,
they had like a Robot Warsy episode of Big Bang Theory, so it's like Robot Wars.
Oh, they
still
did,
a
yeah.
thing.
I think
don't know if it's necessarily still a thing. I mean, it's probably the whole concept of it hasn't gone away.
Yeah,
but it's not like TV or anything any longer.
Maybe they
they have
it's actually not very interesting to watch.
I think it's always been in America. I mean, it was imported, I think, but it wasn't such a good show in America. But it was like a weird underground, sport thing. I think that's still going.
What do you call a flashback when it's like in your head when it's just sound? So, like, it's not like a vision or anything. I just like suddenly came to me. Oh, I've got the Robot Wars theme tune in my head. I can remember it quite clearly now. I also remember it was like one of the first shows that I ever noticed stereo in a television broadcast.
Right.
Because they used to do that stupid like cog swishing from right to left across the screen. But it was like in really wide stereo effects. You'd go like, whoosh-ow! And I'd be like, what the bloody hell was that on my shitty television at my parents' house?
That had stereo.
Well, yeah, but like I'd never heard any broadcast actually ever use it noticeably.
That's cool.
They probably did, but there's probably the insanity of the wizard. Oh, and then there was The Simpsons, and I just did in that like not long afterwards. Occasionally.
News.
Stereo Simpsons.
We've circled back to that topic somehow. News.
What's news in gaming this week or these past 2 weeks?
Stuff. There's been quite a lot of stuff in a way. Like, well, that Evolve news came out from Valve.
What was that?
The Left 4 Dead team are working on a new game that's like Left 4 Dead but not Left 4 Dead called Evolve.
Oh, really?
So it's just going to be like replace the zombies with aliens.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I get the feeling that it's going to be something like they've either landed on some other planet and you're fighting the wildlife or something, or it's Earth set millions of years in the future or something. Someone's time traveled or something. And it's you surviving. Who knows? But it's called. They haven't really shown a lot of it. A few people have like posted some gameplay stuff, but
is this the first Source 2 game then?
Don't know. It's a good question.
Because they were showing off some screenshots of like a Left 4 Dead 2 level that they'd redone in Source 2 just to see the difference. Yeah, it was like the plantation level. So you could see side by side screenshots or whatever. But they weren't planning to release that or anything, I don't think. They were just kind of testing out the engine improvements.
Yeah, I suppose it's a relatively big job to go back and sort of update an entire game to use your new engine.
I don't know how to... I mean, they're labeling it Source 2, so, I mean... Because in reality, it's one code base that has evolved since Quake. There's just arbitrary like distinctions to say that Half-Life was Gold Source, and then Half-Life 2 was Source, and this is now Source 2. I don't know. Well,
for a while they were referring to it as the engine that was made for a specific game. So, like the Portal age, Portal 1 age
the
stuff, they were sort of referring to
stuff.
as the Orange Box engine,
Yeah.
And then I think Left 4 Dead 2 was the next iteration on, and then...
Indeed, yeah. But they just call it Source or whatever. And then people take it, like the Titanfall people have taken Source and just completely ripped half of it apart from what I hear and replaced bits of it. I don't know how much. I think they might be exaggerating how much they've replaced considering the size of the team and the time they've had. But I think a lot of
they've
the
probably done exactly
how well that's running probably goes.
They've probably done exactly what they did to Source is what the Call of Duty team did to the Quake
3
engine,
variant,
Quake 3 engine, to get it how it was.
It's funny because they all go back to Quake because Source goes back to Quake, and so does COD.
I guess the tree that doesn't is Unreal.
Yeah, that's the separate tree. Yeah,
and Unity, I guess. I'm not sure where Unity comes from.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I would
Unreal has
imagine
no
that's-
Carmack code in it, whereas all those other games have.
Yeah, I would imagine Unity is separated as well, but I'm not sure what I'm basing that on.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd imagine they'd be caught in some kind of legal.
And the Cry engine, I expect, isn't based on Quake. I don't think. I think that might have been a scratch.
Possibly, not sure.
Maybe scratch for Far Cry 1, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, yes.
New id Tech engine with the new Doom or Quake game, whatever they're making. I forget.
Yeah, well, Carmack's left now, so who knows what's. Maybe he's finished it, but.
Well, yeah, that was kind of part of the deal, wasn't it? That he was finishing up whatever it was he was.
That's true.
Kind of obliged to do with id before moving on.
Well, apparently it came out that the reason he left was the publishers weren't, for some reason, weren't allowing him to make id stuff compatible with the Oculus. So it's like,
oh, really?
sod that. Yeah. It seems like a really weird thing to do because they must have known that he wouldn't have been happy with that. And why would he stay if you did that? And he's no, it seems really dumb. But yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a stupid decision, perhaps, to try and piss off who is obviously the talent.
Exactly.
It's like, I guess that's why, like, rock stars get their riders and stuff like that. You don't want to piss off the talent.
Exactly, and he's like the closest you get to a rock star programmer, pretty much.
Well, I don't know. Would you consider the career of Romero to be more rockstar because he had that enormous fall from grace?
He's not a programmer really at all. He's like a, in quotes, game designer, right? And
I guess.
Yeah, he never wrote any. He didn't write graphics engines like John Carmack is like a bit of a legend even in just programming in general. There's a whole thing about, and it turned out it wasn't actually him, but there's a whole thing I was reading last week about a particular function in the Quake 3 source code, which did like an inverse square root approximation that was 4 times faster than the normal square root function in C or whatever, or in the standard library. And the clever part about it was it used a mathematical technique that refines a guess by recursively, improving. But the key clever part of the code was it started its guess from a magic number that was hard-coded in that it turned out was really, really cleverly chosen. And there's whole like mathematical papers on how that came to be, that particular like hex number that was just hard-coded in the source code, why that worked so well and gave you such a fast approximation. It's really interesting, because apparently you need that inverse square root a lot in the graphics. Anyway, but that's the sort of thing that he's like famous for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'd heard of that before, but I did look into it, but I really can't remember.
I'm not really a big computer science algorithms guy, but that's really interesting.
Oh, this will be math, won't it? This will be mostly pure math. Like,
yeah, well, it was maths, yeah.
Like, what is the coincidence that this number fits into?
Yeah, why is this such a good number? Yeah. It's a combination of pure math and, of course, the hardware. So it's a combination of that and the x86 probably. Yeah, architecture and stuff.
I mean, in order to pull something like that off, you must have a pretty good knowledge of what the level of precision is that you can get away with in an engine. Yeah, that's to make it run. Because basically, that is most of what modern graphics tech does. None of it is precise. Like, weirdly little of it is precise, from what I know. And it's just the fact that they actually get graphics as good as they do through is just because there are so many imprecise calculations that one of them being a bit off doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, you have so many good guesses that it doesn't matter.
I mean, that was... I might be getting this a bit wrong, but I think that was the reason why the old PS1 graphics chips were a bit fucked, because they approximated too much, and so polygon vertices didn't locate correctly, or when they were doing texture mapping, so you'd end up with these weird skews of textures where they'd sort of like just move a way that they shouldn't do when stuff was going off screen, something like that. It's just because they got the precision wrong, I think. I could be misremembering. All of that completely wrong. So not
Anyway, graphics, indeed.
It's fun stuff.
So there was a Titanfall beta, right?
I'll talk about that at length later because I've been heavily involved.
Oh, have you in it? Jesus Christ. I want to play that more than anything.
Well, everyone was in it because it became an open beta halfway through.
Yeah, you had to...
Were you in it, Zach?
Oh, did it go totally?
No, I didn't bother.
I thought you had to have registered at least, and they just opened it to everyone who had registered.
Well, but I don't think there was anything preventing you from registering during the time.
I thought they closed it as soon as it, like, the
No, I
registration.
think that list, I think, was for the earlier send-outs. I think they just opened it. Like,
Oh,
you could just look, you could just go to it on Origin or something, I don't know.
Because I signed up for both, and they didn't tell me, but I eventually read that they had opened up anyone that had pre-registered for a PC key would just get one turn up in their Origin,
Right.
and it did. It just appeared in my games list, and it's like, oh, look here.
Sweet. Right, we'll get onto that later.
Yeah, I'll talk about
Pause.
that length later.
Let's do something else. Irrational Games.
Yeah, this is big news. Irrational Games is, as we know it, is dead. There's a lot of speculation about why exactly the studio got wound down, but the spark was that Ken Levine doesn't really want to work on big scope games anymore. He wants to do smaller, narrative-driven games, and here's the interesting bit, that are replayable many times.
You
Sounds
have to
fucking
turn into a
impossible.
wizard for that.
They are replayable narrative stories. Come hither and see the magic of my wordsmithery.
I think it's very unlikely that that's actually going to
work in any
work
way.
or mean anything at all.
Well, I don't know. All that means is you have to come up with some story thing that is highly branched.
Well, it just means you have to make, like, more than one story's worth of story, which is a lot of effort.
Well, it's like the Heavy Rain effect, isn't it? Because Heavy Rain actually ended up with quite a lot of branches.
Sort of, except that, like, the way it cut it back together was, like, super janky.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, they didn't really tie it back together very smoothly. It was just like suddenly just went all back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a Peter Molyneux type of goal, to be honest. to
Yeah,
me.
the kind of
Yeah.
shit that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite lofty, and I guess because he's faced with the option of either just letting him go and do his own thing, Take-Two or 2K, whatever they're referred to as nowadays.
It's 2K, yeah.
Well, I think it's 2K is the subsidiary. I think they're all owned by Take-Two,
Right,
something
okay.
like that. Who also publishes Rockstar, or owns Rockstar, one of the two. When faced with the decision of letting him go do his own thing, they kind of said, no, that's fine. You don't have to go anywhere. You just stay under our wings. We'll get it done. We'll let you do what you want, but you can't have your team or something. So,
Or he said, I don't want my team, and they said, well...
I don't need the team because it's too big or whatever.
But I don't see why he can't go and form his own thing under Take-Two and not hand Irrational over to someone else rather than just dissolve it.
It seems like I would have thought that 2K and Take-Two would have wanted to keep the BioShock as a franchise alive because
I'm sure they probably will. They'll probably give it to someone else. I know they haven't got 2K Marin anymore.
Why not keep this? Well, yeah, why not keep the bulk of the studio that worked on BioShock Infinite, which is a hell of a game?
Yeah, seems obvious to me. Yeah,
just let them carry on. Let Ken Levine and his 15 special guys fuck off and do whatever they want. And
I actually think that
the team back. Unless those 15 guys are all of the talent that worked on Infinite, and the rest of them are just monkeys to them.
Not a chance. There'd be hundreds of
that seems unlikely.
People. Yeah, loads of really good people. I'm sure they'll all find work and stuff, but it seems really strange thing to break up like a killer team like that.
If those 50 people were like the more important ones, if not necessarily the most talented or whatever, then that could still like cripple it. Maybe they just coincidentally thought, well, now's a good time to do a bit of downsizing as well.
They already shut down 2K Marin after the Bureau wasn't very good.
But that's a good reason to shut them down.
Yeah,
I don't know. 2K Marin were talented guys. Yeah, the Bureau, I think, was just an ill-conceived idea.
And it went through development hell pretty much. And it wasn't even an XCOM game like originally.
In fairness, I'm not sure Marin could have been involved with it from the start, because presumably it overlaps with BioShock 2 at some point during that dev hell.
Possibly, yeah. Anyway, but I think it might be a good idea. I think, well, it won't happen because 2K will keep Bioshock and then they will make it with another team. But I think they should stop with Bioshock. I don't think they should bother.
Well, they have openly said that they are doing like a recruitment drive to help the people that have lost their jobs, their roles in Irrational, to either find places within Take-Two's walls or to find them work elsewhere. So
I'm sure they'll be fine. But
I mean, it's a pretty big gesture to sort of say, we'll help you out. Most places are just like, we'll kick you to the curb. We do not care.
Yeah, I guess.
But and a lot of studios on Twitter have been actually just openly sort of saying, hey, if you guys want to come work for us. So it's
well, that's cool.
There's been a lot. Yeah, there's been a lot of goodwill towards the Irrational team.
I don't think that's actually goodwill at this point any longer. Everyone does that every time now. I think that's just the only. That's just like cheap hiring strategy. It's like, you guys are going to be out of job. We can pay you whatever the fuck we want, and you'll still come over here.
I don't know. Maybe that only works if they're in the same city or something. So you wouldn't
but they all are, though. That's the thing. It's like there's always the big clumps of studios.
Yeah,
you don't just get one by itself in a city any longer.
This is true.
I think Ken Levine's right not to make more Bioshock, though.
If he wants to do something else, he only really worked on 2 of them because Bioshock 2 was, as I say, was handled by Marin, and but he wasn't really involved in that one because the last I heard that putting together Infinite actually took the whole time from Bioshock 1.
Yeah, it did.
The whole 6-year period was
pretty
to
much.
put that thing together. So I can sort of understand that 6 years on one
thing,
game,
and then those previous years on the original Bioshock,
can probably be a bit much.
So that's like 10 years or whatever.
Mm.
I wouldn't.
So I can fully understand. Yeah, I can fully understand him wanting to move on to something else. Like in the same way that I think most of the Assassin's Creed creators are no longer part of that.
But apparently what he wants to move on to is more narrative and with his movie ambitions as well. Wasn't that what he was already doing, really?
Yeah, he's already...
It's not
he's
he was a programmer as such.
He's still involved in the screenwriting for Logan's Run, isn't he? So.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like that much of a change.
Well, maybe he's got some idea. Who knows? But
depends what his role is, because presumably he didn't just write the script of Bioshock Infinite and then took a 5-year holiday.
I don't know how that works in that kind of company. What do you do with the writers once they've written?
He was kind of directing the actors, as far as I could see, in the vocal booth and stuff. So that's quite a big deal.
That makes sense in a game concept, and you'd probably want to even maybe go as far as directing animators, where it's if you're not doing motion capture or whatever, because now everyone does that instead.
Yeah, presumably. Well, that's probably true of most projects. Eventually, there has to be someone that the majority of the content has to go past, and it's to see if it all fits together. If it's like one of these games based on a vision. It's your world master, the master of the world. He declares whether it's good or not. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, I've no doubt he ran everything in that studio. Pretty sure.
But yeah, so that doesn't really seem like he's not doing that again. It's like he's going to do that in a different place, but maybe less people.
Hey, at least he's not going to make craft beer. At least we'll hear from him again.
Who did that?
That's just because you're not that much into beer.
I'm totally into beer. I just will never be able to sample the BioWare guys' beers because it's in fucking America. It'll be in some tiny bar where they happen to live. Don't ever say I'm not into beer.
You're not into American craft beer.
You don't care about small...
Well, American craft beer just isn't big over here in general.
I don't know. There's some places you can get them, bunch of them. There's a pub in Cambridge that has all kinds of really good craft beer from America.
You do see them around occasionally, but it's kind of a 1 in 50 sort of thing.
Yeah, it's fairly uncommon.
Craft beer over here. I would try some more if it was more freely available. And I'm suppressing sort of mini belchers from my Fosters.
Yep, the exact opposite of craft beer.
Yeah, that's literally as far as you can get.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Tasty though. It's one of the better tinned beers.
So that's that news, I would say.
Yep.
That's that news done. That
Yes,
happened.
Irrational is done.
Hey guys, do you remember Kurin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember Crazy Taxi?
Yes.
Do you wish the two were blended together? Well, you're in luck.
Let me figure out this for a while and try and work out how that.
Let me think about it now.
I don't really know how it's going to work, but there's a game in development that I couldn't help but notice called Roundabout that is basically you steering a spinning limousine through crowded streets, attempting to deliver passengers to their destination.
Right.
So it's Kura
And continually
across the
spinning at
Crazy
the same
Taxi.
rate, right?
Yes.
Just like Kura. Okay.
Yes.
Jesus.
I just saw it and thought that's unbelievable. I'm so into this.
Nice.
Someone
Okay.
come up with a better thing to rotate.
Right.
It was really a fucking helicopter.
Well, it's
that doesn't work.
to make it worse, it's a limousine.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It would have to be long and a car.
Good about lorry.
Those Kurin ships, those rotors span way too slowly to actually lift, no matter how thick the atmosphere was. To actually
Well, no,
lift.
or there would have to be like everything would have to be like 10 times the size, maybe. Like even then, or would it?
I
Like if
don't know.
everything was just really, really big, could you spin them at that slow and it'd be pushing enough air down?
And
to,
get
like,
enough
It
lift.
probably would if it was like if the air was like water. We're talking like that dense. 'Cause
Oh,
then
well,
you get
yeah.
buoyancy as well.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just all that air in the capsule. That'd be enough. There'd be like little motors somehow on those slowly moving rotors that would actually push you through the on the horizontal plane.
Just make it like. Oh, I was trying to think of any other. Try and think of something that would make sense to rotate really slowly that you move through an environment.
No. Oh well, I don't know. The limo is insane, but I don't know.
Be like a. Well, this is just a very typical response for my thinking. It'd be like Space Chem, where you have like a really long thin atom that you have to navigate between other atoms and not let it react.
Oh, that'd be cool. That's a good
Yeah.
idea, Zach.
That would make sense, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, there still wouldn't really be any reason for it to be rotating by itself, particularly.
Mod that into Starbound.
You could
Not
just
sure
have an
that'd be
electron
possible.
spinning around and around or whatever. I don't know.
It has to be long and thin. That's the key part of the Kuru method.
But why? Surely it doesn't matter if there's like a whole. Surely the thing on the end is the thing that hits, like the end part of the rotor is what generally hits stuff. Is it?
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you
know.
need to have the length for the timing aspect.
Yeah,
You
that's
need to be able
true.
to move the whole thing through a small hole before it rotates.
Yeah, you're right.
Have you ever
Ingenious.
looked at the labels on the side of a beer can? Like,
News.
Rob Sports of the day.
well, I just got a bit confused, like temporarily. I know exactly what these
Okay.
means, but you know how that thing where you sometimes look at them and you have that couple of seconds of just, wait, what? Did they really say that? And you're like, no, they didn't really say that. But there's this bit on here where it says, know your limits, right? Talking
Yeah.
about alcohol, presumably. And then you got a picture of a can of the thing. But directly underneath, there's like one of those red, like, no signs, like the circle with the slash across it. And there's a picture of a pregnant woman holding up
Yeah,
a
that's
can.
my favourite, that. And
That's
the
like- I
drink
ju-
is so
I-
small that it just initially looks like, no pregnant women.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I saw there. It's like, pregnant women, know your limits.
Well, that
I
makes
see.
sense as well, even if she's not holding the can, to
I
say
know, it
no
just-
pregnant women in the vicinity of this beer.
It's just a funny thing to think of that someone's saying there, isn't it? It's just like a public service announcer. It's like, preggers people, know your limits.
No, your
That's
limits.
also that's actually a good thing as well.
Wasn't that it used to
They
be
don't have a
Harry
limit though,
Enfield
and they're not
sketch?
supposed to drink any. Yeah,
They
That's
used to be
why
the
there's
Harry
a
Enfield-
cross.
I meant a more general saying of know your limits. Like, know your limits when you're pregnant, and like maybe don't do all the strenuous things you were doing before.
Wasn't that
Oh,
like
you mean just normal? It was a Harry and Todd sketch, yes. It was a really good one, Rob.
Yeah, it's like, women, know your limits.
That was an absolute classic. Now, look, as information enters the mind of a man, and look how it is carefully stored and ordered. Now see it enter the mind of a woman. At first, it's the same, but look, oh no! Oh, I don't know. That was
It's
a
so
classic
silly.
sketch. Was it? I think we should leave the gold standard and make the pound to a level where our exports are competitive. And then everyone just looks at her.
Just looks at her.
Yeah. Oh
I
dear.
mean, isn't this embroidery lovely? Or something.
Yeah. Oh, I do so love little kittens. They're so cute and fluffy.
Oh, it's so bad, but so funny.
Anyway, classic sketches.
That's my rant.
News?
That's my aside done. Do we want to talk about the Flappy Bird stuff?
Yeah,
Nothing to talk
sure.
about.
I played the Terry Kavanagh version.
long
That's
is it?
pretty good.
Oh, he did one. Awesome.
Yeah, he did one. So there's a super hexagon version of Flappy Bird, which is pretty good. and then the most insane one I played was, now what was it? I can't remember what it was called, but basically it looked like the Terry Kavanagh one in that it was like nice colours and stuff, and then the gates. You know, you had to pass through.
Nice
But the
colours
gates
and
also,
stuff.
the you know, compared to Flappy Bird, which is like
Is that like the
horrible,
bullet point
like-
that was under his games? It's like nice colours and stuff.
Well, you know what I mean, like super hexagon,
Yeah, I know.
nice colours and stuff.
Well, Super Hexagon's basically one colour at a time and black and white, isn't it?
It's not necessarily
Yeah.
black. It's like
Well,
a
it's
faded
colour.
version of that colour.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess they're
a
little
single
more-
colour and hues of that colour, I guess. Not hues. Different saturations and brightness, so don't white colour.
Something.
But then the twist was that with the parts that you had to get through the gates, there were like pills that were really hard to avoid that were moving, and as you collect them accidentally, it's called Delirious Bird. There we go. As you accidentally collect them, the level you start going on an acid trip basically, and the level starts warping insanely, so that makes it even harder.
That's kind of cool.
And then you occasionally get one that's like a remedy that will antidote that will make it back to normal. But it's basically impossible to avoid the pills, so you just end up, it just gets more and more warped and completely insane. So yes, I check out Delirious Bird.
The whole thing about like Flappy Bird's rise to success is kind of like typically random, though, isn't it? Because it's not. It is just an endless runner with flapping mechanics. This stuff, it's not new. This stuff's been done before.
Oh no, there's absolutely nothing to it whatsoever. You could make it in a weekend, and he did.
Yeah, and so why this is why there's so many like people copying it so fast, I guess. But at the same time, it's just like, yeah, well, what is the reason for it getting so high? Did someone Apple just really get into it for some reason, put it on featured list, and then all of a sudden it blows up? It just seems like a real shitty way for games to become big.
We're talking about every top 10 list on a store ever.
I know, but it's
As soon as one thing gets to the bottom spot, and then it's just like, oh.
it's kind of frustrating in a way, because that doesn't necessarily mean that anything necessarily is a sign of quality, is it? It's just
Nothing on that store is like a sign of quality. Like the best games do not sell as well as the. I mean, it's like sometimes you get a game that's super simple, but they like make it so slick that it then is a massive success, like Angry Birds or
Jetpack
whatever.
Joyride.
Yeah, well, no, that's a bad example because that's a really good. That's not that
And it's
simple.
free.
Yeah, but
It's
Flappy
quite
Bird is
simple.
like, I feel like Flappy Bird started getting popular because it was like insanely hard at first, and then it was a joke how hard and bad it was as a game, and then all this. News started coming out about how the guy who made it was freaking out, and then he deleted it from the store, and it got even bigger, and now there's clones everywhere. It was just a weird Twitter
deleting
hype
it from the
thing.
store, then it couldn't have got bigger. It was already pretty big before that.
Yeah, but the actual
he deleted
phenomenon.
it because it was big. Yeah,
True,
and it made
but the
news
phenomenon
because
was
he
growing.
deleted it. But yeah,
That's true.
so yeah, he apparently couldn't exactly handle the idea of fame. Is his view of it?
That's just bollocks. It's not like it's like he had the tiniest connection. It's not like the game was some kind of representation of him. All he had basically was like a Twitter account.
No, but he started getting contacted, didn't he, by people saying, "Hey, what do you know?"
Well, just fuck him.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Take the money and just shut off everything else.
Well, I think most people would. Well, he also made the claim that he was worried that the game had ended up being too addictive. And that he was.
Fuck it, either.
Yeah, he had some. Well, I don't know. I suppose some people may have a. If you invented gambling, in the hypothetical sense that you invented the concept of gambling and saw what it could do to me, would you feel a little bit bad?
I doubt, Twitter feels bad.
Twitter doesn't feel anything.
I wasn't talking about.
Twitter feels nothing.
Talking about the company more than everyone working there. I doubt very many of them have very qualms about destroying the entire fucking world. The productivity level of the entire.
No, because I guess if you worked at Twitter, you may probably have the belief that it's like, no, we're not destroying the world. We're enabling others to destroy the world.
Exactly. That's what you have to say about if you make a game that people find super addictive. It's like, well, it's not my fault.
Yeah,
they got addicted to it.
That would be the normal reaction, I suppose.
If it's not actually chemically addictive, then what the fuck? That's not my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. None of us would have done what he did, but I mean, he can do what he wants, right? That's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
The only trouble with
if he feels that way, sure.
The only trouble with it being that it just incites suspicion.
It does, because there were rumours about whether or not Nintendo or their lawyers had got involved because of his use of the green pipe.
Well, that would take 2 seconds to fix.
And he
just
did
import any other JPEG into that.
Yeah.
Apparently, he had updated the graphics at one point before taking it off, so that that's what raised the suspicion. Did someone talk to him about the graphical stuff? And the Flappy Bird does look a little bit like those fish.
The Cheap Cheeps.
The Cheap Cheeps, that's it. Yeah. But Ninty came out and said, "No, we didn't hear it."
What? The internet?
Yeah, what's going on? Although
there's an internet these days.
But you could, it's not inconceivable to think that Nintendo as an organisation may have been separate from some legal entity.
Some guy who did it.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So yeah, it's all a bit bonkers.
Interesting.
That's a non-news story now.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're done.
Yeah,
Speaking of...
as I said, there are better Flappy Bird games that have come out as a result.
Indeed. And as I have played a couple just to see. Interesting that people like Terry Kavanagh would do that.
Yeah, I might check that one out.
Yeah, that was cool. I preferred the Delirious Bird. That's more fun, I think. And the Terry Kavanagh one is really hard. It starts going crazy really quickly.
That's kind of what you want from one of those, don't you? Because you don't really... when you start getting good at it, you get kind of bored of the run-up to the bit you get stuck at.
I suppose. I don't know. They usually make it just hard enough that you have to be aware even on the early stuff. I mean, that's how the original Flappy Bird works, is that the drop is so intense that you accelerate really fast. So it's hard to keep a straight line, pretty much. But anyway, that's Flappy Bird. Speaking of Nintendo and the internet, I've spent almost the whole afternoon getting into Twitch Plays Pokemon.
Yep.
Oh man, that shit's awesome.
Which is amazing and much more interesting to watch than you would think.
It depends exactly where they are. Because the bit when I showed Rob last week was the ledge debacle. So you have to walk 5 squares to the right in a row without pushing down. That's just not going to happen.
yeah. So you just get stuck forever. Oh man. So
it's become infamous because they spent didn't they spend a good days on it?
So that's why the democracy system got introduced.
Well, no, actually, the democracy
I kind
thing
of
came
said
in.
That to Rob as well.
The democracy thing came in after the maze in the Team Rocket thing.
Well, I mean, that was basically just version 2 of the ledge
thing. Yeah,
I'm not sure how they actually solved the ledge thing in the end because I wasn't paying attention at that point.
They got through in anarchy mode, I think, because he didn't have to put on the democracy thing until the maze.
Wasn't there times before that even where like sometimes that the guy would just take control, whereas like if they'd just been stuck there for fucking ages, it's just like I'm just going to move you past this bit.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
No, I hadn't heard of that because that seems like cheating the whole thing, doesn't it? I don't know.
Well, but then they introduced the democracy thing, so it basically did the same thing anyway.
Oh no, the democracy thing I think seems like a good idea, especially with the fact that you can sort of vote out democracy.
Except it doesn't work, because what they've done is they've made it so you can vote in democracy or anarchy by typing democracy or anarchy. But as soon as democracy gets in, everyone instead of typing anarchy just types start 9 and just seizes up the democracy. It's like, just type anarchy if you want anarchy. Don't fuck with democracy when it happens.
That doesn't seem to be happening as much, the Start 9 thing. I haven't seen
I'm sure they've like...
Because Start 9, you'd have to win the vote with Start 9 in order to screw up democracy. So...
Yeah, but because if you imagine the situation where the bar is like 50-50 between democracy and anarchy, and then it goes into democracy, so that's like 51% are in democracy. Of the 51% in democracy, not all of them are going to vote for the same thing. Everyone in anarchy is going to vote for Start 9.
I guess.
That's if they all... But do they all really want anarchy? Like, to 50% of the people in the channel, which is 30,000 people, do they all want anarchy? And are they all pressing Start 9?
I don't know if they altered the rules, if it was always like this, but you have to hit a 75% rating of either democracy or anarchy to change it.
Right,
so
when it doesn't just flip back and forth when it gets to 50%, because that'd be really dumb.
It'd be pretty funny.
It flips back and forth every... In my experience, it seems to flip back and forth every half an hour anyway.
Well, it's sort of inevitable that it will flip, because once you've reached which mode you want, you stop typing it and start typing commands.
Exactly. So the tug of war is a bit weird, because people just get distracted by actually doing stuff when they're in the mode
it's like the tug of war should have been like the crit damage votes in Team Fortress, where it's just a setting, you turn to whichever one you want, and then that's your default vote.
I haven't actually seen it in democracy mode yet. It just always seems to be anarchy whenever I go and have a quick look.
I've seen quite a bit of democracy. It's interesting because it doesn't work that well. I mean, because of the lag of 20 seconds, like even people who are well-intentioned and they're in democracy mode, they still screw it up. Like today and yesterday, like they've spent most of the time in front of the PC just screwing everything up because they want to get out the right Pokemon to make the right team, and they need abilities like, I don't know, Surf, just to get to where they need to go. But basically, they because of the combination of anarchy and people screwing up the democracy, they've released 12 Pokemon today.
I'm surprised they even captured that many, really.
It's called. They're already calling it Bloody Sunday. I mean, it's like all the like. I mean, they came this close to releasing Bird Jesus, who is the most powerful Pokemon. I almost saw them do it. It's amazing to watch because they're trying to get to withdraw, but the next one down is release on the menu. So they're constantly going to release, and then for some reason, like confirming the release
do the menus wrap? Can you go up?
No, I don't think they do.
I don't remember that one. But that was what the whole point of the democracy system was, because in democracy you could also input chains of commands. So that kind of solves the problem, because you can be like, start down to A.
The trouble is they were trying to work out the right chain to get out the Pokemon they wanted, but none of them seemed to realise, after the person worked out what it was, none of them seemed to realise that because they were in the text mode speed was medium and not fast, that the sequence was too long to fit in the 20 seconds, so it didn't work. But people would keep spamming it anyway.
I see. So they'd have to...
So they need to go to the text mode option and change that.
Or they'd have to add extra button presses. Or could they have added extra button presses to the sequence to sort of pad out what it sent?
Well, it gets cancelled by the next sequence after 20 seconds.
If the actual sequence takes longer than 20 seconds to register all its inputs.
Right.
Which it does if the text speed is slower, because you have to wait for the text to print out before you can...
So they need to figure out how to change the text speed.
Well, that's not that difficult.
Yeah. That's possible,
theory, if you can get people to vote for it.
You need people to press start and go to option and then change it. But the anarchy people presumably don't want that shit to happen.
No, they just want to fucking order.
So, oh man, it's hilarious. I saw them release Digrat, which was the one that that had dig that when they were in the tunnels earlier on just kept using dig and warping them out of the tunnel constantly. But he's got.
But it was also like the only thing that could hit ghosts, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
So when they were in the ghost tower, that was killing quite a lot of things.
Man, it's
they
ridiculous.
hit the problem of over-leveling their Pokemon to the point where they can't control them.
Well, I don't know, because they are leveling them quite a lot because they keep hitting random encounters because of the randomness. So they do keep fighting
a lot of the time.
Yeah, so they are leveling quite a bit, but I haven't seen them get that problem. I have seen them, like today. I saw they had a psychic Pokemon. What's the guy? Drowsy. And they had an evolution chance, but they turned it down.
But that would just happen every level, though. So.
Yeah, that's true. But ostensibly, they're doing it so that they can get psychic earlier, the move earlier. But I don't know.
Well, that makes sense.
I think it's probably more random than anything. Well, the trouble now
but then if the anarchists get wind of that, they'll just be like, "Shit, yeah, evolve."
Yeah,
well, you can't,
probably.
But that's the trouble, though. You can't. It doesn't work like that because during the evolve sequence, the only input that matters is if you push B, which cancels it. Everything else just doesn't do anything.
Oh, I see. Oh, so you're more likely to cancel.
Yeah, so it's always inevitably going to get cancelled regardless.
Right. Okay. So there is actually no way to evolve stuff, but the Pidgeot or whatever got evolved, presumably.
Well, that was quite early on, though, wasn't it? When there were quite so many people.
When do you reckon it'll start dropping off and it'll become sensible again, like non-anarchic? I don't know. Or less anarchic, because, people screw it up.
They're probably most of the people who are there are going to see it through to the end at this point, I imagine.
Yeah, I think so. They're quite involved now. I mean, there's a whole story around all the ridiculous... And my favourite is the way that they name new Pokemon, and of course it's random button presses, so you end up with insane names of characters. But then they nickname them based on those names. So, like, there's a guy, there was a Pokemon early on that was just like 8 A's in a row, and they call it the Fonz because of A, I guess, for example. And the most powerful one's called AAAB AAAGSS. So he's Abba Jesus. It makes sense. It's ridiculous. And they had
this thing on Radio 1, your A reminded me of this.
Right.
They've been doing this access all areas sort of thing where they I don't really know what it means. As far as I'm aware, all this week all it's meant is that the people have been wearing headcam. So if you you can go on the website and you can see what the DJs are seeing.
I guess that's what that means.
Yeah.
You can access all the areas of the studio through their eyes.
They take it off and they go for a pee, unfortunately. But they have this. Their jingle for it is terrible because it's basically they've tried to shorten access all areas to AAA. Yeah. But the jingle just does that. It just goes I. In the most it's
just one A repeated 3 times.
Yeah, but it's like the guy they recorded it off just really didn't care, or it's lifted from somewhere else. So it's just like I.
Okay,
it's the weirdest thing.
So that's that. News. Done.
Serious.
We've been at this an hour. We should probably talk about some other shit. Anything else that you want on your news stories, Rob?
I thought I had some other news. Oh, Dungeon Keeper. That happened.
Do we have to talk about that as well? We already talked about fucking Flappy Bird. I mean, come on.
No
one cares about Dungeon Keeper either.
The only thing I wanted to mention about it is the hilarity of Peter Molyneux saying, "What the hell have you done to Dungeon Keeper?"
Yeah, that's quite funny.
And of course there's the positive side of it of good old games just giving you Dungeon Keeper for free if you log in and claim it.
That was awesome.
Get original Dungeon Keeper
because it's much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happened.
Indeed.
So I guess we're now on to games.
So what you've been playing? Rob, you've been playing Final Fantasy, is that correct?
Yes,
Titanfall, come on!
I want to hear about sequels to JRPGs, to modern JRPGs. Yeah, okay, fair enough, I don't. I want to hear about the game that I want to play, which is Titanfall, which looks so fucking awesome. I can't wait. to like.
I did play
play
like
it.
3 hours of Final Fantasy 13 too this
Well, you
morning.
can't talk about that. Just we should probably do this first.
Okay,
It's
stompy robots
zombie robots.
and like
All right.
jumping around crazily.
Guys.
I want to play that game.
Guys, here's the thing. I don't know how to break this to you, but both of them, both the Xbox game and the PC game, are fucking incredible.
Of course they are. It's the
I still
saviour
remain
of
not
everything.
entirely convinced.
What?
Mainly because of, my problem with it, from what I never actually got round to playing it because I still didn't actually care that much. But my main problem with what I've seen of it is just it's more of a content thing for me. It's like gameplay wise, it's just shooting. I mean, that's probably fine. But I'm worried about how much content there actually is going to be and how much like customization and that kind of stuff.
I worked out that I initially overestimated this, but I worked out that so the beta contains 2 levels and 3 game types and a limited selection of the weapons and
like one of each, basically.
Yeah, one of each type, and that's apparently relatively limited compared to what the full spec will be.
Yeah.
There's rumours flying around that there's going to be about 14 or 15 maps. And
although I did hear someone also suggest, which was kind of worrying, that like that
Maybe
could just be all the maps, including the ones that are of DLC, and the files are just there in advance.
Which would probably suck, because if they had like 1 or 2 DLC packs, that means there's probably 9 maps in the game.
Yeah.
Which would be
even
bad.
14 doesn't sound like that many.
14 is quite a lot for a multiplayer game, a modern multiplayer game. Let's put it that way. It's not.
How many
a
maps
lot
were there in
like
TF2 when that came out?
6.
Yeah, but that was a special case because that was like
part of the orange box.
They didn't even know that
true.
was going to be that successful.
No. TF2 launched with 6.
Double that seems reasonable.
Can't remember how many there are in Blops and Blops 2, but it's not a great number.
It's like
probably less
Battlefield
than
probably
10.
has.
Battlefield doesn't have many. Really. It has
No.
variants of it based on the size of level, I suppose.
Well, I mean, it's like probably has 8.
Maybe, yeah.
How many did
Default,
Quake
they do
3
expect
have?
it.
Quake 3 had fucking tons. And so did Unreal Tournament 2004. That had loads of levels.
But they were in different game types, like they were like specific assault ones and stuff.
Definitely. I mean, I remember when UT 2003 came out and people being a bit disappointed with the number of maps that were in it compared to the original UT. And it's like, you look back now, I would be very happy with a game to ship as many maps as UT 2003 did. That was pretty content rich by modern standards, goddamn.
Anyway, the Fall of Titans.
Given that it only had those 2 levels and only that limited selection thing, I've put in well over 10 hours during the course of the beta into it because I could not put it down. If I get
I'm
into
starting
it,
to think like the interesting question is this the killer app that's gonna give the Xbox One the edge when I still think the PS4 is almost certainly a better machine? It could be that good.
The evidence is still mounting. That the PS4 is outperforming Xbox, not just in sales but in technical ways as well.
Yeah.
It's there is the evidence just keeps coming. I mean, it's not a very technically impressive game. Let's put it that way. It's it's throwing a reasonable volume of stuff around, but then so did Call of Duty. And
it's a shame it can't run at 1080 on an Xbox.
Yeah, that is a shame. I mean, the version in the beta is running at some bizarre, nearly 800p or just over 800p res, something like that.
Yeah.
And the developers have come out and said, look, by release, we're going to have this at 900p.
Yep.
But here's the thing, it wasn't 100% smooth experience. It does get touch framey.
Well, it was beta, I guess.
The 2 levels. Yeah, and it is beta, so maybe there's debug code running, and maybe it's talking back up to the server more often than it should to relay some of that.
Just logging stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, which is fine. And to be honest, for a while I really didn't notice until Kippers kind of pointed it out to me. It's like, yo, this isn't running as the resolution's not as high as I would like. And then I actually got up from the couch and went and had a look, and it's like, oh yeah.
Slightly
so because honestly, I'm used to Call of Duty, which was never really 720p anyway. It's like even on the old Xbox, so that was like, I'm kind of used to it not having a great resolution. So going to a Call of Duty feeling game, on a newer console. It's like, yes, it's better, but all I noticed was that it's better than how the previous games looked. So yeah, it's a little bit. Despite the frame rate is king motto from Respawn, it's not quite there yet, at least from the beta.
No.
On PC, I had no such problems once I'd cocked around with the settings a bit. It took me a while to get it to play how I wanted it to. I mean, running it in 1080, not a problem. And it does make a bit of a difference for seeing people in the distance. The extra res is nice. And the game does handle it well. The assets are scaled appropriately.
Yep.
It's not like there's a bit of out of place UI that's not done in the right detail, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I had to cock around with my PC settings. Well, like I had to turn VSync off because turning it on actually introduced judder into the movement.
Yep.
Which is a bit crappy, and that was apparently quite common. My machine can't handle the insane texture detail.
No,
because you need like 3 gigabytes of video RAM,
right?
And my card only has 2. Zach might be okay, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Have you got 3 gigs on your card?
Yeah, I've got 4, apparently. Even though I thought me and Rob had pretty much the same card, apparently the manufacturer that I bought from my one was a 4 gig.
Yeah. Oh, wait, because I purposefully chose not to get the one with the bigger VRAM, because there aren't many games that use that much VRAM.
All I remember doing was choosing the one that you didn't get. That was pretty much my only plan there.
Wait, what's wrong? My ones perform well.
Well, it's just because I wanted to not have the same.
Just to see.
Yeah, exactly. It was just the same card because you can't. That was the price. It's like obviously the same card is going to be the same price. You just want a different.
Was it this? Is it this? Mine's a 670, and that was like the sweet spot.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
how much I wanted to spend, and it's So VSync is a bit of a weird one. The VRAM thing is a bit of a weird one. We were playing Battlefield 4 yesterday, and just to put this in perspective, Battlefield 4 barely goes over a gig of video RAM.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's a bloody lovely looking game.
And massive.
And enormous. And that's pretty much max settings on my machine. There's a couple of things I have to notch down, but texture detail isn't one of them. Because, I just want to say, look at the texture detail.
Yep.
And it only uses a gig of video RAM. So what the hell are they doing in Titanfall to make it use that much RAM is kind of crazy.
I guess they're just trying to... Because that's the one thing you do get in the new consoles is tons and tons and tons of video RAM.
Well, that's the thing. You only really get about 2 gigs of like RAM you're allowed to access.
Is that right?
Like,
okay.
I think that's RAM across the board because like most of the time it's like shared in consoles. Except I guess the difference is that PS4 is obviously using video RAM as its entire RAM base. I believe it's all like normally shared on a console. I could be wrong. And there's like a hot swap area.
The PS4 has... Doesn't the PS4 have 8 gigs of fast video RAM that is all of the RAM? So then you can... Is that
This is the thing. The Xbox apparently is only using the high setting. It's not using the insane setting. So even if they have all that RAM...
Yeah, they're not using that, yeah.
They can't, They're not, or they're choosing not to.
So does it stay under a gig if you put it of use if you put it down to high or whatever?
Honestly, I wasn't paying attention.
All right.
I was too busy playing the game.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I'm just wondering because I think my graphics card has 1 gig of RAM.
You'll probably be fine. Well, and I would hope you would be fine.
Well, I was thinking of getting it when I was looking at tons and tons of Titanfall like beta, previews and shit last week. I was basically gearing up to buy a graphics card. But then I looked at the and it was looking like 400 quid or something, the ones I was looking at. And
that's about right.
Then, that's the trouble. And then I looked at the Digital Foundry breakdown of the beta, and it actually looked like my card would be okay for now.
Okay,
it's not a requirement for me. I could probably play it.
Some people were claiming that the 3 gig estimate given by Respawn was a bit high. Though, I mean, how it affected me, well, I did try it, and it resulted in some really bad hitching for like the first, I suppose, third of a match. Like, so if I saw something I hadn't seen before, there'd be a very awkward pause. which is kind of annoying when first a lot of the early encounters are probably I hadn't seen the texture of a pilot up close, therefore it hitched as soon as I got into a fight, which means I lose. So that was no good.
You just have to use the stealth kit and just run around at the start of the match, not doing anything, going like, I've got to see every bit of the level quick.
well, yeah, but you have to then still have seen a pilot, and the first time a Titan comes anywhere near you, it has to load in that, and that would cause a hitch. And it's like my machine was not necessarily struggling to render those graphics, but struggling to load them in the first time they were relevant. Because after that, it was fine. But like it actually started running fine, even with my less than 3 gig video RAM. It's just that first third of the game was such an awkward experience that I ended up having to knock it down to try and avoid it. It was quite reminiscent of how my old machine used to play TF2 when TF2 started getting bigger, because that was under spec'd on the RAM department after a while. And TF2 would hitch for like the first half of a match, like when I was still seeing stuff that I hadn't seen before, and then it would be fine. And then you'd get to the next match, and then it would do it all again. And then I put then I doubled its RAM capacity, and it was fine. So it probably is to do with that, but it's just kind of it just looks weird, you know. It's one of those sort of hard to explain, like what the reason is behind it running fine after that point. You know, it's strange.
I think I'll see how I go with this card and then think about, because the trouble is,
apparently it scales quite well, and even when you're running it on the high settings, it's not actually visually, it's not very different from the Xbox version anyway. Like it's not like they're throwing extra effects around on the PC version, really. I mean, you can up the.
They haven't got the time to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, you can have proper anisotropic filtering, which I don't think the Xbox version has, and I think you could do. Obviously, the higher resolution's a big deal, and better anti-aliasing. But that's about it. The rest of it looks identical.
I think it looks pretty cool, and as long as it runs nice.
We've been talking about all these technical things, but my god, it's a hell of a lot of fun.
That's the key. That's the key part. If they're working on making the gameplay right, then they can get the other parts right next time. I mean, when you're on the ground, it feels very much like Call of Duty. So, and that may sound off-putting, but somehow they've made it not frustrating compared to Call of Duty. I don't know. Call of Duty is a good game, right?
Yeah, I really enjoy playing COD Blobs, and COD Blobs too. But I really don't. I don't know what they've changed, but somehow it's just more enjoyable.
Well, the first thing that's probably different and might help with that is because there's such a limited selection of guns and unlocks, everyone's basically using the same thing. So there's not like any guy who's running a really specific set of perks.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not possible that there isn't a way of building a really frustrating build.
Well, there's so few options that there almost isn't any builds at this point.
No, and
you don't have that horrible feedback loop where the guy who's got lucky and got a bunch of kills now has a kill streak and now can just murderize everyone with whatever. Yeah, well, it's
unlocked. Still you say that, but actions you take do decrease the time to which you can get your next Titan.
And the power.
But everyone still gets a Titan eventually.
That's it.
Yeah, everyone still gets a Titan eventually, and when you're in a Titan, it counts down the time to get your Titan power up faster. But yeah, you're right. Everyone does get a Titan eventually.
But then it can blow up almost immediately because it's not like they're actually that powerful.
No, they're not.
As it turns out,
they're not crazy tough. And
what I don't understand from
the game kind of
people
correctly warns you when you're in a bad situation. So it's like you are outnumbered 3-1, and then you're like, "Fuck, gotta get out of here."
I gotta leave.
Then you're like, you might as well just fucking eject because they're not going to escape.
Well, you do. You can escape at times. Like if you're far enough away and you get behind a nice building.
If it's a ranged occasion,
yeah. I mean, there are ways of dealing with it, and sometimes actually because of that, the beta had the nuclear ejection option. Actually, just charging the fuck in there and sacrificing your Titan can be a kind of effective tactic.
Yeah, because you don't die, right? Because you can still eject, so it's cool.
Yeah, you assign the nuclear ejection, and you also assign the. There's another kit which auto ejects you.
Well, you don't
when
have
you're
to
doomed.
have both of them.
No, you don't, but it's kind of a cool combination if you're going to go down this route where you just charge your Titan in there, let it get fucked, and then of course
Wait to die.
It goes into the doom state real fast, auto activates the nuke, and auto ejects you.
I don't think auto eject is actually a good idea.
No, I tend not to play with it because you want to use the doom
during the doom state.
Yeah, you want to use the doom
You're
state.
wasting it.
But it is risky because there are times where the doom state can just go down. And
Because you can still get shot.
Well,
it's basically another health bar.
And if you get meleeed when in doom state, it's insta kill.
Well, yeah,
because they just grab you out of your cockpit.
Does it still then explode?
No, I think the nuke doesn't.
Oh, what? That's a total jip.
I don't think. Well,
that makes sense though. That's cool. If you manage to grab them out of the...
Yeah, but the nuclear ejection shouldn't be tied to the pilot's eject system. It should be tied to the fucking robot blowing up.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I guess they probably tried both ways, knowing them. I mean...
Because that would be... I
mean,
it seems like a bit of a jip in terms of that way that power-up should work. But also, if you think back to Call of Duty, it's basically just martyrdom, and that's always annoying when you knife someone and then a grenade comes out.
Yeah,
and then you die. That's not actually fun.
It was kind of funny though.
It's funny for the other guy, yeah.
Oh, so good.
I used to use that all the bloody time.
Well, I don't seem to understand. Now, you can tell me now you've played this, but whenever I watch footage and there's people in Titans, they seem to focus on the other Titans, and it seems like you should run away from the other Titans and just kill as many pilots on the ground as you can, because you're super powerful against them.
Well, that's actually because hitting the pilots is kind of tricky.
Right, but even so...
The precision of Titan weapons is actually quite high. So, and the splash, for instance, from one of the 40mm shells, which I use all the time, isn't great. As in, unless you hit a grunt head on, you tend not to kill them with the splash. So actually hitting pilots, unless you land a direct hit, is pretty tough.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the weapons on a Titan are more geared up to anti-Titan combat than they are to...
I still think it'd be
combat.
Interesting to focus on pilots and see how that went.
Well, I mean, you can, but it's kind of tricky.
Right.
As I said, a pilot on the sort of city level, I found it hard, if a pilot was just being a little sneaky bastard on top of a roof with the lock-on launcher.
Yeah.
Unless you got a direct hit on them.
Well, it's because all the buildings are precisely taller than how far you can see, so you're always shooting it upwards, so you can't splash damage onto the floor.
You're always shooting over the lip.
You're basically fucked.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do about that unless you manage to land a real good shot, which is obviously slightly easier on the PC than it is on the... on the Xbox, but only slightly.
I think what I'd want as a Titan perk or whatever, I think what I'd want is to have it so that whenever you exit the Titan, it always does the eject sequence, even if it's not blowing up. Because the eject sequence takes so long and leaves everything exposed because your Titan is crouching down and putting you on the floor.
Yeah, I think once you've fully activated the eject sequence, you're kind of okay. As long as you get through all of the presses of the eject.
No, I don't mean the eject. I mean the opening and taking you out when it's not blown up.
Oh yeah, that takes way too long. I agree.
It's I want that as a perk. I just always want to eject a seat out of it, regardless of whether it's still alive or not. So then you can just jump out and shoot the guy on the roof.
Because you're super vulnerable when you're doing the melee finisher or the termination.
So you're saying? Sorry, I missed that. You can't eject unless you're doomed. Is that what you're saying?
No, you can. You totally can.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, but then the Titan just blows up. It just sacrifices it.
So you've lost it at that point.
But you might, if you're using the injector seat, that makes sense. You can just get out of the Titan.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's the getting out sequence.
But that takes too long.
Forever.
But the getting out's not so bad. It's the getting back in.
Well, both of them really together.
The getting out's okay. The getting in is a problem because you're vulnerable when the Titan's still putting you, because you don't get a shield or anything during that sequence.
And also, as I was saying to Rob about the fact that people can just jump on your Titan and shoot it in a giant weak spot, it's this Titan you're piloting has giant fucking rowboat arms. Just reach up there and grab that guy.
Yeah.
Presumably it's just out of range of the things, but I didn't find radioing is kind of funny. When it happens, you just jump out, and most of the time, actually,
well, that's when the incredibly long jumping out sequence comes into play.
That's what the jump out isn't very long.
It's still pretty long.
You can jump out and get enough shots on to kill a guy. Normally, before they've even noticed you've jumped out.
Well, the other problem with the with that whole sequence is even when you jump out, they're still like on top of it, so it actually makes them quite hard to see.
And your Titan is wriggling around trying to throw them off. But yeah, most of the time that's not a problem. Like occasionally people will notice and jump on, and you've got a bit of a fight on your hand, but you have the advantage in that scenario. And of course, it was one of the late unlocks in the beta, but the electric smoke would just.
That is the counter to that, supposedly.
If you put that on the floor right next to you, then the pilot on top is just dead.
It's not a very cool counter, though. I want it to reach up there and grab them.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I think it's for what I played. I actually think the balance is pretty great from what I've seen so far.
But there isn't much there to balance. That's the problem.
I don't really have a problem with anything I've played, but it's the bit I was worried about with regards to control, it's bollocks. I was wrong. It plays just as well on the PC as it does on the PC. Xbox.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, it's just as good. Obviously, there's no guarantee that the user base drop off is going to be any good, but given that there's people still playing COD and you could pretty much still join a game on COD apparently on the PC versions, then it's probably not going to be a problem.
I think it'll be okay. I mean, the only big risk is that it's on Origin, to be honest, and not on Steam. But I mean, people play Battlefield.
I had more technical issues on the PC version, like just it with connections, and that may have been like, I don't know, again, remnants of the beta. And there was a couple of menus that would flicker like horribly. Because I don't know if you saw the burn card system, but that menu
I did.
Assign your burn cards.
That went wrong on your system.
Just kind of fucks up on the PC version. Like it all just goes black a lot. And flickery. It's a bit strange.
God damn, I want to play this. It's
really good.
Are you going to get it off? Like, I'm going to get the PC version. It's on Amazon and disc copy for like £35. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, that's the cheapest I've found it. I don't know. I want to try and convince Kippers to go PC as well, obviously. But
obviously I'm PC. I
think
got an alternative, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I want the PC version as well, just because I know it's going. Well, because it runs fair enough for me, and because I've managed to put aside my worries about it being the inferior version. Because
you can always get the other version another time if it'll get cheap or whatever, probably.
Maybe, but the COD games don't get cheap very fast either.
Right, okay. Well, never mind.
I'll probably end up with both, but that's a hell of a lot of money to put down. But...
And even more if it's DLC.
It's probably good value from for your pound to hour thing.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, given that I've got like 10 hours out of it and I haven't put any money down yet, that's probably already made that.
Exactly.
Well, it'll be getting pretty close, but after we played it a bit.
Yeah.
Although they still haven't really opened the lid on exactly what's happening with the campaign side of it, because it is supposed to tell a story, but all of that stuff is supposed to be multiplayer as well. So whether it tells the story, and then at the end of that, it's just dropping you into a normal multiplayer game. It's
well, that's how Brink did it.
Yeah.
I'm not really excited about the universe. It's fine. I quite like the art style and stuff, but I mean, the generic sci-fi is fine. I quite like the look of the spaceships that are when they're in orbit and then you sort of, teleport down and back. That you like. It's kind of the jump drive, like in Battlestar, isn't it? Pretty much. Yeah. You have to fly a little bit and then you jump.
It's like a bit of me kind of wishes that some of it was a little, for a next gen game, that perhaps some of that was a little slicker. Because it basically, like in the beta, it performed exactly how COD performs. You join a lobby, you're in a menu, you can cock around with your character whilst in this menu. The timer ticks down, and without a much of a beeping noise, which I find annoying. Like I quite like the old Halo,
the Halo beep,
or something like that.
For all of the 3 seconds of warning that gives you.
Well, there would be it would pop up Halo would, at least in the later iterations, would pop up little toasts on the screen to sort of tell you what's happening with the search and stuff. So they kind of alleviated that a little. And I think even COD Blops has a bit of a ticker when it gets to the last 10 seconds. And this just doesn't. It's just quiet. The music starts to fade out a little bit at the end. but I want to see something bombastic there. So you don't go back to just a menu. You go back to like a ship. Or something, and you're in your quarters or in this loading thing, and then when you get about to go down the level, when you're in the lobby and stuff, you're actually in the landing craft in orbit, and then the time down is like you jumping in. I don't want to have to go to this separate loading screen anymore because that just feels decidedly old now.
Yeah.
It felt old in COD because Halo would background load before the match began.
Yeah. I guess might be a.
You still just appear in Halo now.
Yeah, I know. You still just appear, but the whole fact that there's a loading screen just feels a bit old. I mean, Titanfall starts with you in the landing ship, but you're already jumped in.
Yeah.
And it's just there's just a very short sequence of you jumping out the back.
Flying out. Yeah.
I mean, I just perhaps would have. These days, I think you can do a lot more of that whole sequence.
There's one thing that annoyed me, and I think it must be a specific thing to me, because you know how for some reason I like dropships, but yeah, the dropship that you evacuate to in the epilogue when you lose, like it looks like it's fixed to the level, and I wish it was like hovering in a more convincing way. It's just sort of stuck.
If it was a bit more sort of bouncy.
Yeah, it just looks like the perfect anti-gravity, and it doesn't matter how much everyone shoots it, it just is locked to that position, like in the sky. And then as soon as everyone's in it, it then sort of jerkily activates its flying away. And I wish it was like hovering in a cool way, that it was like, it was desperately trying to keep level while people jump onto it. That would be so cool. And also when it blows up, it looks terrible as well, because it kind of disappears and is replaced with an explosion when it ought to crash into the ground and burn and explode and shit. So for some reason I'm just annoyed by that.
I'm with you on that. I am with you on that one. I am with that whole that thing is cool. I mean,
the concept's awesome.
It's utterly pointless in a way, because all it is to a chance for the players to gain a bit more points before the round ends. But
I like that kind of shit.
To provide context rather than it just ending.
Yeah, and it's always just get to the chopper is just inherently fun, even if you've already lost. Like that bit, those are always good bits in Left 4 Dead where you have to get to the chopper.
I mean, and you're invulnerable once you're inside the thing. Which is convenient. So once you
are you though? I'm not entirely convinced.
No, there was a time where I got up to the platform and most of the enemy pilots had made it back, but one of them was straggling, and so I could get some clean shots into there. And I couldn't. Either the shield from the dropship was protecting them.
Yeah, that seems fairly likely.
Or you just can't. And I've never seen it happen. I never saw it happen.
I just want to see.
Got destroyed.
Maybe you can get a sniper rifle. The old classic.
But that doesn't go
shoot out.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. Maybe if you get a powerful enough sniper rifle. A special anti-shield sniper rifle.
If the rockets and the 40 mils from the Titans aren't going through the shield,
then I don't think. Yeah, that's true. I just want to see it wobbling everywhere with thrust vectoring everywhere and loads of noise and particles, and things being blown up around it and shit. That would be awesome. But no, it's just sort of there.
It is kind of weirdly the weakest part of the presentation.
Anyway, maybe they'll fix that.
Apart from the odd duff texture. You could walk up to some walls and it'd be like, oh, you didn't think about that one, did you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I've seen that. But
that's
cool.
That's classic Call of Duty stuff, that is.
Yeah. It's not a Source kind of thing, usually.
No, normally Source is pretty hot on its textures.
Yeah. That's a bit odd. But never mind.
But it's it's a lot of fun. The Titan combat, even I described the pilot combat as being COD, but the Titan combat is a lot more, I don't know, thoughtful. I found myself doing better at the Titan combat than I did the pilot stuff, especially on the Xbox. I don't know, there's something about the controller that meant I was I would come out on top on most of the Titan fights on Xbox, whereas I found on PC it was a much more level affair. Everyone was doing about the same as each other. I don't know why that is, but I seem to always have a very, very good run when it was the last Titan standing game type on Xbox.
Cool.
Which is weird because it's not like I prefer that game mode. I just seem very good at it.
That game mode seems like it's probably going to be dumb. Because I thought,
it's a lot of fun still.
Well, it's a good idea.
It's almost the most team play game type there is.
It's a good idea, and it's a good theoretical game type for team play. But as was shown very clearly in the giant bomb video when they were doing it, what you do is you find a place that's just slightly behind a cliff. Get out your Titan, leave it there, and go on foot. And then the round never ends because the enemy don't find it, and you just maybe you died because you're a pilot. But what the hell? Providing your team can pull it off.
No, that's Titans aren't that hard to find.
Well, you'd be surprised because there was one. There's the larger map, the one with the sort of green open spaces. Do you know where the dropship comes down that far end, the bottom end, the green end? It's sort of near the cliffs.
There's 2 green ends.
Well, there's the end where it lands next to a building, the one where it's more like on top of a hillock, sort of. But anyway, there's cliffs down there.
Oh, okay, yeah, the one that's on a sort of like little, one near the pipe end, as opposed to nearing the sort of more open drilling end, I will call it.
Maybe. Oh, fuck it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's these cliffs, but there's like... The map is at like one level as you're walking up to it, and then there's like a short drop onto a lower platform, and then the edge of the map. Yeah. And there's no reason for that bit to be there. No, and that's a perfect place to hide a Titan, because then you can't see it from the rest of the level.
Yeah.
And so Jeff did that several times.
I got into a habit of just going down that area, because that's where a lot of Titans' escape routes are. Well, okay. So I just go that way because I know that's where people go to hide. But it's like that's not hiding a Titan. That's just where people go to escape.
But the trouble with that is that because of the way the game mode works, it's like you're down the Titan that's staying there. But providing your team does enough damage to the other ones, you've still got that one pristine Titan, and it's automatically defensive. So if they do find it, it's at least doing damage. It's not like you've just left it.
Yeah, but Auto Titan is crap.
Well, yeah, it's crap. But then the point, so because it's like it only matters when the Titans die. It's like so long as you get it down to like maybe 2-on-1, you still have a fairly decent chance, even with that one perfect Titan, providing the other 2 have been shot up. Yeah. It's a bit of a dumb tactic, I think.
It's a tactic. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that strategically.
I just think the level design shouldn't allow you to hide it quite so well.
Yeah, admittedly, I have to admit, I don't like that bit of level. I think that's pretty dumb, but I don't see a problem with that as a tactic. But it's probably because it's dumb because there's not really much of an equivalent on the other side.
Yeah, that is the other problem. And I mean, as a tactic for that game mode as well, it also seems kind of... Because it's like when you jump out of the Titan, you still have that fucking rocket launcher, so you basically just doubled your firepower, even if the Auto Titan does suck.
Except, in my experience, Auto Titan sucks enough that I worry about the survival of my Titan when it's in that state.
Well, yeah.
I would rather be piloting it because I can get it out of the way when Auto Titan would decide to carry on. I don't know. I prefer just being in the Titan all the time in that mode.
But because in a mode where it's basically situations 6-on-6 Titans, when you're in a mode where it's basically Titans fighting and the Titans are the only thing that matters, once you have because normally that would basically eliminate all the inside building space. So to suddenly have a pilot running around, that kind of actually does slightly change that game mode.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, on that level at least, Fracture, it's... if you spot a pilot from long enough away and they haven't gunned you yet and you just take them down, then that's... As I say, that Auto Titan becomes practically useless in the grand scheme of the fight. If that pilot's not around to protect it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's a very viable tactic. I can imagine people doing it well, but...
I bet if the whole team just jumped out, that'd be pretty funny.
It would be pretty funny. So you put all your Titans on guard mode and left them behind. And...
Yeah, just see how much damage you can do with the pilots before.
Yeah, that would be... If someone was coordinated enough to do a pilot ambush where they all just pop up over the top of the buildings at the same time, and like, rocket barrage!
I wonder how much damage that would actually do. Probably quite a lot.
You could probably take out... If all 6 players did it, you could probably take out 2 Titans in one shot each. Because that rocket launcher is pretty heavy duty, the one that locks on.
I don't remember whether if you're out of the Titans, if I don't remember if there's only an Auto Titan left, whether that still counts. Because the point of that game mode is once all the Titans have died, even if there's pilots still alive, then it ends.
Yes,
but I don't know if that also applies the other way around. Like if the pilot has jumped out and you kill him, but the Titan's still there, whether that counts.
No, you're right, actually. I'm not sure that ever happened.
Oh, no. I'm sure people weren't experimenting with that dumb tactic.
No, I don't know. Don't know, actually. But it's friggin' awesome. I suppose that is... We sort of touched on it a second ago, but that is perhaps one of the bigger complaints or the more common complaints that I've seen about the game, is that it doesn't really encourage much team play.
Yeah.
I mean, it is sometimes... better, like during hard point, perhaps if you assign 2 guys to a point and have them stake it out.
Because then it turns into the classic Battlefield problem of just like running to each end of the level, and then by the time you got there, oh no, the other point's been captured, run back.
Yeah, which does happen a lot. Yeah, it's very easy to just have go solo on it, which is probably why I had a good time with it, because I played like a reasonable amount of it.
There aren't really any obvious like combos or anything.
No, I guess not. It's not like you have the medic heavy.
Yeah, or even like.
But that's never really been the case in military shooters in general.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be.
Well, unless you're like a tank driver and you happen to have an engineer like just propping you up every now and then.
And the idea that your team can theoretically ride on top of your Titan, that seems pretty useless. Because their view jiggles around so much they can't shoot.
Yeah, it is cool, and it's a way of getting across the map faster.
Is it faster though, really? Because I'm not sure the Titans move that much quicker than the dudes.
They do.
And the dudes can just take
boost
the straight route, in theory.
The Titans can run.
Well, yeah.
They move quite quick.
The dudes can run straight through the buildings, though, or over them.
No, riding a Titan is faster most of the time. But that opportunity doesn't present itself very often. And you have to assume that the Titan's not going to get into a fight that's going to...
They just put that in because somebody said, "Oh, can we ride on?" And they said, "Yeah, why not?"
It doesn't really offer much tactical advantage, really.
Yeah, it's just a cool thing.
Yeah, you could probably use the lock-on rocket, like
theory,
provided you don't. Or as this happened to me, I was sitting on top of the Titan and was trying to lock on, and my view jiggled in such a way at just the wrong time that I shot the rocket into my own Titan and killed myself.
Yep, naturally.
So,
if you're riding a friendly Titan, does that prevent the enemy from rodeoing it?
That would be the question.
Yeah, that is very... Again...
Or could you have like a melee fight?
That'd be really...
have a punch-up on top of the Titan.
Which then would be a punch-up, because the melee attack is that stupid kick.
Yeah, I guess.
So you'd be having a weird kick fight.
Well, I'm not sure if the melee attack even works while you're holding on, I guess. That'd be the question.
Probably not. It'd be very funny if you could, though. Because that would be a relatively good tactic, because you have to get... Because when you're riding the Titan, you're inside its shield bubble. So, as a pilot, you get some protection.
Mm.
But yeah, it's hella cool. If it's as big as that, if it's 14 maps, as they say, and if there's enough variation in the kit, then this is going to be... Even if it's not, in fairness, even if it's half that, it's probably well worth the money.
I think, I think it could be interesting.
How much fun I got out of it.
It's definitely going to be worth it for me and you, and we're going to have a great time. I just think it's
going to be. It's going to be one of those games that's going to annoy Naomi, because I was playing it basically all the time I could.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
It's going to be one of those games.
Yeah, but that was a time limited option, though.
True. Maybe that's understandable, but
yeah,
it got under my skin, like in a way that a lot of games don't. It had the draw in spades. I just wanted to go back and play some more Titanfall, even without the time limit. I just wanted to play it. It's that good.
So things that you apparently wanted to play, Final Fantasy 12 to what?
Final Fantasy 13 too, you mean?
Yeah, 12.
I'm just wondering what you guys think about the effect it might have on the whole industry. You know how Call of Duty is this massive thing in the industry.
If Call of Duty dropped single player and made more multiplayer, then I don't think anyone would care. I think that would be a good move for them.
Yeah, but I just mean, do you think Titanfall is going to change the whole landscape of video games in the same way that Halo did?
Are they going to upset Activision enough?
It's not that much different.
Probably
no,
not.
I know.
You're right.
But is everyone going to be talking about it
just going to get 2 hits a year? It depends how often they knock out a Titanfall. I doubt they're going to go on the annual cycle anytime soon.
Probably not. Although EA might, you know what EA are like.
Yeah, true.
They're already doing it with Battlefield,
But I think EA are just... they don't own Respawn, I don't think. I think they're just acting as a publisher.
They'll probably push for like off years.
Technically independent, but...
They'll probably try and alternate Battlefield and Titanfall.
Probably, yeah.
We shall see. Anyway, yes.
I wouldn't want it to see going annual, because if it's multiplayer focused, then it doesn't need to be, really.
Well, you could update the same
trouble with all of
game.
these games.
I mean,
Every time you say that, like, particularly in the age of DLC, every time that we've said, like, Sonic Generations, it's like, there's no reason for them to make Sonic Generations 2, they can just make more maps, but apparently they're not doing either in that case. But
No. Making Sonic Boom instead.
Oh, yeah, that was news, I suppose.
No, we talked about that last
Did we?
episode.
yeah, we did, yeah.
That must have happened only just before that.
Yeah, it did. It was like the day before we recorded.
So Final Fantasy, some period 13.2, is that right? Yes.
Yeah. I played quite a lot of that today. It played a, like, oh, is that what's going on card in the story today, which is kind of interesting. But it was kind of played after the end of probably the most tedious section of the game so far. So at that point, it was just like, well, that only just about justifies what I've just been through, you bastards. It's like the section I've just played is them desperately trying not to make a section linear, even though it's only got one real solution to escape. But it's like, you know, you actually have to do some stuff to get out. You're not just walking down a corridor. Unfortunately, that stuff is like pressing switches and making stuff move, and then you have to walk down it whilst trying to avoid the random fights on small walkways, which you can't do. Sometimes they just spawn on you. It's like, after a while, like, that section went on for a bit long, and after a while you're just like, I don't really want to fight anything. I'm more powerful than all of you bitches.
Sweet.
I think I'm leveling too fast in that game. Just nothing's a problem for me at the moment. Not even the bosses.
So
Red Chocobo nearly had me there.
nearly got killed by a Chocobo, but not the bosses.
Yeah. Oh, and a Gigantua. I fought a Gigantua.
Well, naturally, those are always hard.
Yeah. I've charmed a Gigantua.
Good.
Blimey.
So I can control one. But he's kind of shit until I level him up, but he requires real high-level material.
Naturally.
So I haven't got any. But yeah, I would quite like him in my team. Just because he's a fucking Cactuar. I don't know. I'm still kind of enjoying it. You do still sort of plod through a lot of areas, just going press X, press X, press X. Finish the fight. There we go. Job done. Move on. But it is starting to open its hand a little. There are some sections like where it feels like maybe it's trying too hard to be a Final Fantasy game. Like, you know, it's got a casino island. Like, there's a whole time space devoted to, there's this random spot in time and space, which is a casino.
Right.
That sounds familiar.
Like, as if money doesn't have any, like, there's no economy in this land. It's like, you know, you could, like, money is just eternal. Like, it doesn't
Well, that is how it works in the Final Fantasy universe, apparently, because everything is skill, always.
Yeah, and there's no inflation, ever.
Everything just costs ludicrous amounts, always.
Yeah. So, like, nearly $2,000 for a Phoenix Down? Fuck off.
That'd be pretty good in real life. I would definitely buy one of those.
Yeah, $2,000 for a Phoenix Down. It's not bad.
So that would depend on whether you could use it on yourself.
You'd have to have someone.
Yeah, you'd have to have like a designated Phoenix Downer.
Depends how long after that kind of death, I suppose, that a Phoenix Down can be used.
Well, apparently any amount of time according to the Final Fantasy universe. They can be lying there for significant amounts of time and you can just go flip.
So why was Eris not just given a Phoenix
Well,
Down?
that is the classic question.
See, that's how life
no.
insurance would work in the real world. Is,
Why
you
does
know,
the-
everyone would pay for life insurance, and then they'd hoard all the Phoenix Downs, and then you'd be paying part of, you know, whoever died, or you'd be paying towards their Phoenix
Presumably
Down.
they don't stop aging though, so if you like die of old age or old age related illnesses,
Yeah,
presumably they don't just like waste a Phoenix Down on you so you'll be awake for like 4 minutes.
presumably.
Depends how rich you are.
Yeah, just have an endless supply coming in.
Yeah, keep buying the Phoenix Downs. Those Phoenixes aren't having much luck.
Well, are there even Phoenixes or Phoenix? What is
Where are you
is
going to
that-
get the down
No.
I
from?
don't think so.
Is that the plural of Phoenix? Yeah, are there any Phoenixes actually in Final Fantasy? Is it just this down everywhere?
It's just down.
Well, there's a summon Phoenix, isn't there?
Is there?
I think that's what you get it in Final Fantasy VII at Fort Condor, because the
Oh,
giant
yeah.
condor thing
He's a phoenix, not a
I'm
colony.
not sure if it actually is, but the phoenix material mysteriously turns up in the nest.
Right.
And then you get it. And that actually is just a summon that reses everyone.
Okay.
Which is convenient.
So maybe there have been Phoenix in Final Fantasy games.
I'm sure there have been in other Final Fantasy games at some point, more legitimately. Just a generic type of enemy anyway, in most cases.
So I've hit the supposed 20-hour mark where I'm supposed to have finished the game according to game trailers.
Yeah.
It's not a chance. I doubt I'm halfway through. And I could easily go and probably spend a reasonable chunk of that time again going back to the areas I visited to do things differently or find the stuff I haven't done. But I'm not gonna.
No.
Because I'm already over-leveled. So, why would I need to go back and do all this side shit if my characters are already too beefy? I guess that was kind of the part of the reason, wasn't it, for always doing side stuff in RPGs in general, isn't it? It's just you want to. It's something slightly more interesting than just doing a grind that gives you some other purpose to grind, I guess, because you'll be grinding on your way to doing this other thing.
Maybe.
But as I say, I'm at the point where that's kind of irrelevant to me. So I'm not really doing it. But it's all right. It's all right. I'll tell you what isn't all right, though.
What's that?
I've been sort of playing Intrusion 2.
Right.
It's actually a Flash game, right? Straight out, it's just a Flash game that you can get on Steam. And it's this little indie game that's trying to be a bit like Metal Slug, I suppose, and it's a run and gunner. But it's got a physics system in there, and it's basically very reminiscent of Scribblenauts in a way, because everything animates a bit like Scribblenauts, like all the dudes with their limbs and stuff. They sort of animate a bit like Scribblenauts, but it plays into the mechanics of the game a bit too heavily. Some of the bosses, they traverse the level by climbing on things and throwing stuff, and it animates kind of coolly. So they're using their big claws to grab onto stuff and move around and stuff. But it's also one of the game's biggest problems because it's physics. It means they can't really make anything particularly tight, I guess. So shit just happens occasionally that you can't do anything about. And the biggest problem is that depending on what's happening, sometimes it really fucks with your control. The worst part is that sometimes it's just hard to jump. If there's an object that's sort of pressing against you, sometimes it just won't let you jump because it thinks you're in either floating or got too much momentum or something. Right. And it means you just can't do what you want to do, and it's kind of crappy because of it. And it's frustrating because there's sort of a spark of genius here. When the game plays well, I'm kind of impressed with it when it's doing its thing. And actually, when it all comes together, it feels pretty good, and it's not that bad. But it's just the levels are a bit long. The checkpoints are a little, in places, are quite harsh. And there's no when you get hit, there's no invulnerability period. So you could get hit a lot very quickly and just die, and then have to go all the way back to this checkpoint. That was a while back. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm not sure piloting any of the vehicles is much fun. You get the first vehicle. I say vehicle. The first vehicle you get is a fucking wolf. It's a giant wolf you can ride.
Okay, awesome.
Which again animates really coolly, but it's just a pain in the ass to control. There's not really much benefit to it, other than if you manage to find a flat stretch of land and you're running, dudes just get smashed by your wolf's face. It's So yeah, it's hard to recommend it. It's kind of cool as a quirky little. There's a video on the site that I streamed. Last week. It's kind of a quirky little thing, but it is just a little bit frustrating. It's that video starts with possibly one of the best bits of the game, which was this relatively cool boss fight. Yeah. And ends with a highly frustrating set of long sequences that are kind of just annoying to get through. And then I got to one where it seemed to just go on forever, and then I died, and it put me back miles, and I'm just well, fuck this! It's So yeah, Intrusion 2.
Flash games.
And because it's Flash, it doesn't exactly run very well.
Typical.
It's like a a low frame rate, but I think it's kind of locked to that, maybe to get the physics to work, maybe. But what else have we been playing? We played Battlefield 4 a bit yesterday, didn't we, Zach?
Yep.
That was alright.
Have you all bought that then? You've all got 4?
I think even Kippers has got it now. Yeah.
All right. What
He's had it for quite a while.
Okay.
He just never plays it.
Well, you don't really enjoy the modern iterations of Battlefield, do you, Dan? Like, you didn't get on with 3 very much.
No, I didn't really get on with 3. I don't know why, because I like 2, and obviously I like the classic ones, but it didn't make me want to buy 4, because I probably didn't play.
2 is probably the most frustrating of the lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it looked amazing, obviously.
It does look very good, yeah. And I've been using your joystick to try and learn to fly.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I don't think I'm any better with it, but it's kind of fun just having a big joystick to throw around.
Well, someone's at your door again.
Doorbell.
Interruptions to our podcast.
For the love of...
Go deal with that.
I might have to take.
I guess I'll talk about why played.
Well, I might have to get that joystick back if this Elite Dangerous turns out to be awesome. I mean, it's looking pretty good. Quite excited about that. There's been a closed, not open, alpha going on, which was like some, quite linear shooty missions rather than the huge, gigantic open world of Elite. But even that was looking pretty cool. Some good reports on that. So
right.
I think as long as they get the combat right, because you end up just sort of spinning around and around each other, and it looks like they've actually got some proper...
classic problem with
any
kind of
exactly
space or air combat.
But they've got some awesome like momentum mechanics or something where you have to time it right, and it gives you a little indicator for like that you want to kind of slide on the, you want to slow to the right speed as you turn or whatever. So it actually gives it some cool.
Well, it was the old classic thing in like freelancing and whatever, where in theory you had the cool thing where you could like disengage your engines and just carry on in a straight line and then turn and shoot, but you could never do it for any actually useful benefit.
So they're trying to make that a lot better. It seems like what they've done is they've made the yaw speed much slower than the pitch speed. So you have to pitch and roll in order to, you have to bank in order to turn fast. Whereas in free space you would just yaw. You could turn left as fast as you could turn up, right? So you would just yaw and pitch directly to where you wanted to, to where the target was. You didn't have to actually maneuver, in a kind of aeroplane-like set way.
A lot of the older space sims would handle that way.
Well, yeah, because that's how space would theoretically work, I guess. Yeah. Unless your spaceship was really badly designed, so it had like... different amounts of thrust on each turning axis.
Yeah, but I guess that's what they're trying to do to make it fun, and I think that sounds cool. And also, that's more like because all the space opera, space combat, like Star Wars or whatever, is always based on jet fighter combat. It's not actually like it doesn't actually think about how it would really be. I mean, if you look at Battlestar, it does have little thrusters, and you can sort of flip over, but they're not really. They're not really the right shape for how a space fighter would actually... Like, I'm not even sure what a space fighter would actually look like. I can't think of any hard sci-fi. They probably just wouldn't have fighters.
Cylinder with, like, motors all around it.
It wouldn't need any shape. It would just be a fucking
cuboid. Or something. Yeah, exactly. It would be like a Borg cube, basically. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so I think that's looking pretty cool. But anyway, you were going to talk about...
There's still some like center of gravity shit to worry about, like when you're thrusting at an angle. Like, so maybe a sphere is the best option.
Or if it was evenly distributed inside the cube.
Yeah.
The corners would be a problem.
That's where the thrusters are. Anything else you want to talk about now that you're back, Rob?
No, fuck it.
Okay.
I've talked way too long.
It's sack time.
Titanfall took over.
Yeah, well, conveniently, Dan made an ingenious segue to one of the things I was going to talk about by talking about space.
Space!
That was convenient of you. Because for some reason, I decided to try another shot at X3 again.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, you said last week, didn't you?
Yeah, because it's like, I tried that ages ago and talked about it on the podcast and about how dumb it was or whatever I said at the time. I don't really remember. But this time, I was thinking about going back to it. But the first thing I did was went and basically, like, I don't know what I even searched for, but I Googled around to see what people were saying about it, I suppose. And the general consensus was, like, unless you actually care about the story of the X universe,
Yeah.
then you don't need to bother with the first one, Reunion. I mean, first X3, because there's 3 of them.
Okay.
You don't need to bother about the first X3, which was Reunion, which was the one that I tried to play the first time, because Terran Conflict is just a better game. Like the stuff that they improved just makes it better if you don't care about the story. And then the third one, like Albion Prelude, is like, it's the sort. Apparently, maybe mechanically, it's still better than Terran Conflict, but it's like the mission structure and stuff is simplified, so it's actually like not as interesting a game to play, I suppose, is what people were saying. So I was like, well, okay then, I guess that might explain why I thought X3 Reunion was a bit weird, because I don't care about the story. I prefer a better game, so I installed Terran Conflict instead and started in on that to see if I could make any more sense of it. And it's like I sort of got a bit further in it this time. It's like it makes slightly more sense. It seems like it works better. I don't know. I had a lot of problems with the combat and stuff that small time I played X3 the first time, and this one seems like it's a lot more manageable. It just seems like, like normal space combat, you can aim at the lead marker and you shoot things. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
But then what is complicated still, even with the improvements, is just like, it's like Eve is supposedly like spreadsheets in space because everyone just does maths because it's all about profit margins and manufacturing and all that kind of dumb stuff and pasta calculations. Whereas like X3 is basically just like menus in space because like you can fly your ship and that's fine, and you can get bigger ships if you want to fly really goddamn slowly. Which is not actually that much fun because the bigger the ship is, the slower it gets, of course. But so you can fly your ship and you can shoot things, and that's okay. But then, like, the whole idea of building your empire and like making lots of money and building your own stations and having actual fleets of ships, like actual like capitals and sub ships that go around with them, or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
That's just like a huge pile of menus. You're not actually really doing anything. It's just like you go in because at the moment I've only got like 5 ships, really. I mean, I've got a few extra ones that aren't doing anything, but I've got like 5 ships that are active at the moment. It's like my main ship. I've got a trader that I used to do just generic trade runs between stations to make some cash, and then I've got my first station, which has its like supply ships, basically. So I built the station, and the supply ships are automatic. But then, like, the trading run ship, it's like, okay, I want to make this ship do a new trading run, because this isn't automated at the base level, at the simple level. You can buy, like, an upgrade to do some automation. So you're like, go into my property list, scroll through the list until you find the ship, and the property list is organised by where it is. So it's like, what solar system did I leave that in? Right. Scroll down until you find that, click on it, open its command console, go to trade run, and then it pops up the sector map. Go to whichever sector you want the first station, click on the first station, click on the product you want to buy, pops up the map again, go to wherever you want to drop the product off, click on the station you want to deliver it to, go! And it just does it.
Okay.
So it's like, you do all this tons of menu stuff just to make a ship fly between 2 places. And yeah, so it's just like, it's simultaneously not enough and too much automation, because it's like, it's enough automation that you're not actually doing anything other than telling it where to go. But if you could maybe tell it where to go in a slightly simpler way and have it maybe just like automatically repeat certain tasks and stuff, that would be better as well. Because then you wouldn't have to keep going through this whole menu system over and over. And even then, and then there's just like things that are just sort of missing. Like for example, my there's one major thing that's actually sort of considered a bug that isn't fixed, where when one of your ships gets destroyed, it technically sends you a message, but the message makes no sound and doesn't flash the message box. So right. Like an hour later, you'll be like, hang on, I'm sure I had one more ship in this list. Oh wait, it got blown up at some point.
Well, bye.
Yeah, exactly. So there doesn't seem to be any way to like make your ships automatically retreat when they see an enemy, even, which you'd think would be quite important, particularly for like haulers. It's just like, I don't want you to continue flying towards your destination. I want you to run the fuck away.
Is it to try and encourage you to send don't send haulers unprotected?
Well, I guess, but like the other trouble with the whole X universe is because it's like dynamic. Like, everything is actually simulated. Like, all the cargo ships that are transporting shit around are actually transporting cargo, and all the enemy fleets that are moving around are actually spawned from somewhere and have an intention to go somewhere. So it's like, sometimes even the safe systems, you'll just get, like, a small fleet of enemy ships that are just going through it to somewhere. And a lot of the time, the NPC, like, factions don't seem particularly interested in shooting each other. There's actually quite a lot of the time, even the pirates aren't that interested in shooting you. You can just like fly past them, they're just going somewhere, you're just going somewhere, whatever. They don't really mind.
There's some logic to that, I guess.
Yeah, but then of course when it doesn't happen and like one of your ships just mysteriously gets blown up because some giant capital alien vessel happened to be flying past at the time, that's kind of annoying. And then you don't get a message. Or you do get a message.
Just crashed into the side of it.
Yeah, exactly. Probably. Crashing into things is another big problem with that as well.
So can you run this like with multi-monitors and like set up, like, could you have feeds from your other craft like in other windows?
I don't know. I initially thought it did support multi-monitor, but it also has a feature called monitors, which are like picture-in-picture.
Right.
So I don't know whether the options were actually referring to actual monitors or not.
I see.
But I don't think you can have the picture-in-picture thing unless you're in the system. Because when you're not there, it's just doing a basic simulation, which is apparently quite a problem for like combat ships, because it just basically sort of does a DPS calculation. It doesn't actually simulate combat. It's just like, would the ship win theoretically? And then it just blows up.
So even if you were more skilled or something, or if you had, do your pilots like have a skill rating?
No, because it's all just computer controlled, so you don't really get pilots as such. The only pilots you do get are trade pilots, and they level up through doing trades, and then you can send them on. They're sort of better at automating trade routes at that point.
Right, so it's always like, there's no sort of like, I don't know, random factor to say, hey, these guys got out by the skin of their teeth.
No, probably not. It seems like it's just a simple calculation. So yeah,
I looked up because this is a bit of a different story again, but I ended up looking into Star Citizen a bit because I realised I didn't really actually know very much about what was going on with that.
Right.
And Kip has said he
bought shit.
Yeah. In it. And I was just like, well, what is this? And it's like, I didn't realise it was made by the same guy that put together Wing Commander and Freelancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's pretty much the same game. Like, he was even talking about in his I don't know if it was his Kickstarter video or what, or just an intro, like the intro video on the site. He goes on and talking about how you can go to bars and get jobs off random
get people to say,
yeah,
we don't own this place, but we have an understanding with the people who do.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's just making the same game, it seems, but like
we
doubling
own
down
this
on
station.
what Freelancer was trying to do. Yeah, with its multiplayer
well,
stuff.
we can only hope.
It actually, man, if he pulls it off, Star Citizen's going to be amazing. But,
I don't know whether to be more excited about Elite or Star Citizen, really. I think Elite has, like, Elite seems like it's slightly less ambitious and therefore slightly more likely to succeed, but who knows?
Yes, slightly more possible. But yeah, so I pissed around in X3 for like quite a long time, and as I definitely remember saying this about the first time I played it, it's so goddamn slow. Even with the fact that you can use the time acceleration to speed everything up to 10 times speed, it still takes fucking forever to go anywhere and do anything. And then after a while, I was like, sort of the small little things that like weren't as good as they could be, like the station management and like. Or like the flying around and like how you have to position stuff in space when you're building things and all that kind of stuff. It started to slightly annoy me, and I was like, well, there's got to be mods, because this sort of game always has mods. So I went and looked up some mods, and there wasn't really as many like clearly like good mod like overhauls or whatever as I thought there would be. But there was this
like one at the top of the list that's just like, oh yeah, this is the pack everyone should have.
Yeah, basically. So there was this one that's like the Uber. It's almost like rebuilding the game from scratch. It's like a completely different layout to the universe and completely different plot missions and storyline, and everything's laid out differently, and all the systems are in different places and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And like a bunch of other improvements to the UI and things. And I was like, well, that sounds sweet. So it's still that. And that just makes it even worse, because like if you thought everything was really far apart in the base game, everything is about twice as far apart in this one. And I'm just like, why? Why is this fucking solar system 600 kilometers across and I can only fly 100 meters a second?
Did someone think that was more realistic or something?
I mean, I can see the theory, because I think the other part of this mod is that, like, it deliberately starts off sparse because the world building happens in real time. Because that also does happen in the base game. Like, new stations get built automatically by the NPCs to, like, fill supply and demand or whatever. And I think the idea of this mod is it's meant to start off sparse and then it gets built because this is, like, a new sector of space that's only just been discovered or whatever. But so basically that means everything is like super empty to begin with. And that also maybe is because like it gives you space to build in. Because a lot in the base game, a lot of the time I was looking at systems to build and I was like, there's not really anywhere good that has a decent like area of space for me to fit stuff as such. So I think that might be the problem it was trying to solve. But it's just like the fastest ships still only go like 400 meters a second, and even at 10 times speed, that's going to take a long time to fly between these games.
I just kind of realised what I said a second ago. Like you said the systems are 600 kilometers across.
Yeah,
and I said they think that's more realistic. Like 600 kilometers is not very far.
No, that's the classic freelancer problem of like you're flying at 1 kilometer a second. That's so incredibly not fast. Yeah. So yeah. That was X3. That was what I did this week, basically. And then last week...
Yeah.
Last week was the Pokemon Bank finally arrived.
Oh, of course.
That's news.
Yes.
News!
So I finally got to do the thing of porting up all my old Pokemon into the new game. Which worked, I mean, I guess. The Pokemon Bank is a bit weird because...
Are you just using it for the free month or whatever?
Yeah, I'm just using it's got a monthly fee, I think it's a yearly fee actually. I don't think they have monthly, but it's only like £5 or whatever for a whole year. So I guess that's fine for it to be a yearly thing. But the actual like app, I guess, that's what you call it on the 3DS, is a bit weird because it's like it doesn't use the touchscreen at all. Even though half the screen is the touchscreen, and admittedly that sort of unifies the control scheme because, like, you can't. It's like the top screen is the boxes on the internet, and the bottom screen is the boxes in your game.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes sense that they couldn't use the touchscreen. You can't go between them, so you kind of need to unify it.
That's why both screens should have been touched.
But that kind of sucks. But so I ported up all my old Pokemon, and that's fine. And then I'm like, well, I've got 500. Pokemon in my Pokedex out of 700 now, so I'm like, well, I might actually be able to go for some kind of almost completion type thing. So then I was thinking about, well, obviously that means I'll have to trade for like some of the ridiculous rare shit. So I'll probably have to trade away some of my more rare ones from the old games. And I was like, well, I know, that's probably fine.
You're going to go back to the old games.
Yeah, well, in theory, you could just restart the old games again and get them all, which makes them not actually that rare, in theory.
I guess, yeah. You could farm the game.
So I was trying to think of, like, what is the most rare thing that I can probably just get? It's the classic, like, the old trading up from a pen to a Ferrari or whatever.
Right.
You're trying to think of like, this trade is only a slight bonus to me, but if someone takes it, then I can upgrade that trade to a slightly better thing and maybe work my way up towards one of the rare things.
Do you reckon that's worth trying? Let's see if you can pull it off as like an experiment.
Well,
catch a Caterpie or whatever. And...
There's kind of a second part to that, to the trading story that I'm going to come to in a slightly roundabout way. But so what happened next was when I ported up all my Pokemon from the old one, I was going through them, checking their stats basically, because now you have the thing in X and Y where you can basically look at their individual stats.
You can see how good your power used to be.
Which is pretty funny because when I look at my original team, it's like, wow, this one I was using has like 2 stats that are 0 in my team. I was like, wow, that bad choice apparently. But then so I was going through that, and then I came across like one of the things that I traded up from the old version. I was like, oh look, this one is obviously a hacked Pokemon. Because it was the first time I'd actually noticed it, because it was like, basically all its stats were the same, but not maximum. Which is like basically a trick to make it so slightly less obvious, because if they were all maximum, that would make it a bit too obvious. So then I came to the fun time of like, now that the Pokemon Bank exists, they made a big deal. Well, not that big a deal. They made something of a deal on the Pokemon Bank website about like, it's going to detect hacked Pokemons and you won't be able to trade them up or whatever. Apparently, that does not fucking work at all. Because it's like, firstly, I traded that hacked Pokemon up by accident because I didn't know that it was. But
sure,
but
to get rid of these goods. These goods are dirty.
But the trick about that is that like the one that I had was what they refer to as a legal hacked Pokemon, which is
wait, what?
Which is to say that it could theoretically have occurred like that or naturally in the game just from random number generation. Basically, it's like it didn't have any stats that it couldn't theoretically have had. You see what I mean? Dan, I'm talking to you now because Rob's left.
I'm getting it, yeah.
So that's like a legally hacked Pokemon, as in.
But
like,
you think it probably didn't come from the game?
Well, it's super unlikely. I mean, the fact that I guess it's not actually that unlikely because it's fucking random, isn't it? It's the fact that it has exactly the same on every one of its stats. It's like, that's just as likely to happen as them all being different.
Anything else. Well,
but that's
the thing about... And, like, random number generators aren't that random even, so...
Well, I mean, that's really how those hacks happen, isn't it? Because they manipulate the random number generator.
Yeah, it's all about where do they get the seed value for? That's the key thing with RNGs. And it's probably not the most cryptographically secure RNG in the world, the one in the Pokemon cart.
So I traded that one up through the Pokemon Bank, and that's maybe sort of acceptable that it wouldn't detect that because it's like it looks like something that could theoretically be generated by the game. But then, when I was doing my initial attempts at trading up on the actual trade, the actual trade bank, I put in for like one of the legendaries, like a trade to just see if I could trade up slightly to one of the better legendaries, or one of the legendaries that I thought was going to be more valuable.
Yeah.
And what did I get back from that? Well, I got the legendary Pokemon, except that it was shiny, level 1, with the Pokevirus, and in a Master Ball. And I was like, that's not even subtle. Oh, and all its stats were maximum as well.
Right, okay, yeah.
I was like, that's not even subtly hacked. That is literally the most hacked Pokemon you can possibly have.
The most possibly hacked. Awesome. What did you do with it then?
Well, I've still got it for now. I don't know.
Right, okay.
Maybe I'll try and trade it on. But then after that happened, I was like, well, that's weird that like this incredibly hacked Pokemon slipped through the system or whatever. But then when I actually went and looked at I did a search in the Pokemon Bank for everyone who was offering that Pokemon up for trade. Because before I'd done it as a receive, where I was like, I want this Pokemon, so it was only one person's thing that filled it. So I looked at the whole list for everyone that was offering that, and it's like 50% of them are shiny. And I bet you almost all of those shinies are hacked.
Yep.
So I was like, well, apparently the checking the Pokemon Bank doesn't work at all.
Apparently the whole thing's like busted currently, right?
Because I mean, that one that I traded up, the subtle hack, it's like that could obviously slip through. But there's incredibly obvious, easy ways they could do checks against hacks. Like, for example, legendaries being level 1. Or less than level 70, where legendaries always spawn at level 70. It's just like, that would be the easiest check.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. How hard is it to set these things up? Especially when 1 million people are going to be using it. Like, obviously, because it's Pokemon, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's the hacking of Pokemon. It's kind of inevitable. But on the plus side, it might actually make it real easy to complete my Pokedex. Because I can just
that's true.
Hacks. I can probably just give them to you.
Just get everything, yeah. Yeah, Mew, get away. Meanwhile, in Twitch Plays Pokemon, Abba Jesus just fainted because he ran out of PowerPoints.
As you do.
They're totally fucked. They're in a cave and they haven't got flash, so it's completely black.
Well, that doesn't actually matter, provided people know where they are.
And I think their entire team's now down, except for one lap press.
Well, I'm sure it'll fade and then they'll go back to the Pokemon Center again.
Probably. And then they'll just go back to the PC and release them all into the wild.
Yep.
Oh dear. Anyway, never mind.
So yeah, that was my Pokemon.
That was Pokemon.
Have they like is missing no unofficial Pokemon.
No, I don't think so. I do wonder what would happen if you even tried to trade that. Presumably, it doesn't even trade out of red. Like if you tried to trade it up to gold or silver, that probably just break.
Yeah, I wonder if it even can.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the Pokemon trading fiasco, and then I was just doing some more breeding. Basically, I finally finished my breeding stable where it's like I've got one Pokemon that covers each of the egg groups at maximum stats. So I'm like, they can breed with anything now to make something else with maximum stats if I want to.
Why do I find the phrase egg group funny?
Okay.
because you're Rob.
I don't really understand. Even I don't get that one.
So that was what I spent the previous week doing, and then in between that, I slipped in a tiny bit more Starbound modding, but not really. I finally got round to doing that maths that I was trying to do last time.
Oh yeah,
which took way longer than it should have because I kept rewriting it over and over when I kept realising that I should be doing it in a different order, which is actually the problem. So like the maths part, I knew how that was going to go, but actually putting it in an order that made sense and actually made the code not incredibly long.
The logic part.
Yeah,
right.
It's like
typical programming efficiency.
Because eventually, if you don't think about it, you just end up with like everything being in one giant if, and then a million sub ifs.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way, I can just do this calculation outside the ifs, and then just have that be a variable. That's much cleaner.
I wonder if you could do some. There must be a static analysis way of like simplifying logic like that. You must be able to press a button and get the optimum.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I've necessarily.
Because I've got some tortured logic
like
currently, and like I'm sure it could be simplified.
I guess it's a real tricky thing because there's like when you run it through, especially if it's in a single function, maybe there's a way of analyzing it and it figuring out the best way to do it. Although you may argue that sometimes an optimizer might be able to do some work for you there anyway.
Yeah.
What you're saying when that
might not be true of Loire scripting or
no.
Yeah,
when you've
exactly.
got a proper compilation step, perhaps the optimizer steps in.
That's true.
They know a lot of tricks. Those optimizers,
yeah, they do.
They're very clever things.
So
often, this is why they warn against like premature optimization because actually a lot of what you might be doing may not be helping at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I finally finished reprogramming my goddamn solar panels to actually work during the daytime, which took too much effort, and was still a bit of it's still the actual game doesn't even really allow you to do that because like when you warp out of a planet, it's like so I made it so when you walk away from the solar panels on the planet, it calculates for the correct day length of that planet when you come back. But if you actually warp off the planet and the whole planet unloads, it just resets the day-night cycle.
No.
So at that point, I was just like, well, it will just give you 50% of the energy. Because that's the closest approximation you're going to get.
So but the problem with that is, could you cheap it just by jumping off, jumping on? And then...
Not really. I mean, that would theoretically allow you... Because I sort of do that anyway in the game. Because it's like, if you walk down to a planet and then it'll go exploring, and then it gets to nighttime, you're just like, well, fuck nighttime, beam up, wait for the planet to reset, beam down, and walk the other way, but in daytime again. Because it resets the day-night cycle. Don't bother with night. So that's a bit dumb, but I don't...
That sounds like something they might change.
Well, maybe, but you'd still have to... It's a matter of, like, keeping that data loaded, I suppose. You have to
constantly keep it loaded, you just have to save it somewhere. If they have a save file,
because if you could just save it, but if you want the time to progress correctly, regardless of whether you're at that planet,
you have a game. You have a variable that tracks the game clock.
Well, yeah,
when you left, and at a game clock when you came back.
It would still have to store that information for every planet you land on.
That's not a lot of info.
No, it's not. In theory,
it's not something that has to be loaded all the time.
Let's make them fucking make it so plants grow when you're not there first.
Yeah,
because that's still not fixed.
I can see their problem though. It is when you're talking about game efficiency, this kind of an annoying thing to have to try and do.
Yeah.
That's why so many games, say like X, have to make some kind of
just when you're not there version of the code.
Yeah.
When you're not looking, it can do much quicker, simpler calculations.
Exactly, because it doesn't matter so much.
But yeah, so I finished reprogramming that, I uploaded the new version, and those two people who I was having a big discussion about their mysterious bugs that I couldn't work out what the fuck was going on, They haven't replied yet, so I don't know whether I've coincidentally fixed them.
Right.
Which would be the best result. So that's that. I can't think of anything else I played. Oh, I played like 20 minutes of Super Hexagon before I came over here.
20 minutes, solid.
Well, it's like you can't. I read an article about Super Hexagon at some point that basically said this, that like you do best right at the start of a session, really.
That's true of a lot of games.
Well, yeah, but I don't. It's kind of a weird thing. But yeah, so I still haven't managed to complete fucking Hexagonist. I've got to like 47 seconds. It's so close.
It's not bad. I still haven't actually really played it with any. I'm not sure I want to. I know it's a good game, but I don't know. I don't necessarily want that amount of eye fuckery. It's like I still haven't really played. Talking about games I haven't really played, it's like I still haven't really gone back to Dyad very much.
No,
I always kind of had the intention of doing so. Like it's still installed and everything to try some of the trophy challenges I was getting pretty close to succeeding with, but just don't.
Yeah.
End up not.
You end up don't. I think. Oh, and the other thing, obviously, was I played some more amount of Bravely Default. Not that much, because that was the Pokemon took over the 3DS for a while, and then I was distracted by X3. But I don't know why it turned out to be such a sudden stumbling block that like suddenly put me off playing it, because I've been playing it tons, and then it came to the point where I got an airship again. Not actually the same airship, surprisingly. It gave me a totally different airship rather than fixing the one I already had. So I was like, oh, okay, I got to the airship, so I have now I can go anywhere on the world map. Except really that means you can go back to anywhere you've already been and go to the next place you have to go.
Is that
Because that's basically the whole thing.
Right.
Except as it seems like it's probably not the end of the game. There's going to be something dramatic that happens, evidently. Because I know that'll be chapter 4 and there's 6 chapters.
Right.
So I got this new airship and for some reason that just completely halted all my progress. And then when I actually did try and go to the new place, it was like, holy shit, these enemies are too hard. Well, I guess it's time to do a little bit of grinding again.
Is there much side stuff you could potentially do elsewhere?
I don't think there even actually is side stuff that's not tied to the story.
Right.
It's like when you what has happened every other time is when you enter a new chapter, once you've done like the first couple of story steps, then there's like a couple of side missions that branch off from it that are sort of related to that part of the story. But then there's not just any like random stuff you can go and do in the world that is just always available.
Right. I wonder if this is the point that some of the reviews mentioned where like the grind suddenly gets a bit more prevalent.
Maybe. I mean, it did seem like a sudden difficulty jump for these enemies. Although I think I've probably mitigated it and I haven't really actually leveled up that much because leveling seems to be suddenly slower as well. Maybe that was my other problem, that the grind just seemed like it was going to take a long time. But eventually I worked out the strategy. And
is that not helped by the grind being... Is it not interesting enough? Or...
No, it's okay, but you're just like setting the same commands. Once you've got a tactic down, I mean, obviously the best grind is if you can put it in auto. You don't have to do anything, you just run in a circle,
yeah.
And it does it for you.
I have it on good authority that the grinding in Ni no Kuni is... Severe, but not dull.
Right.
As in, you have to do a lot of it, but it's actually not that bad. You know, it's kind of fun to do.
Who's been playing Ni no Kuni?
No.
Eddie.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Not Rob, because he didn't get it when it was super cheap on PlayStation.
I've got too much else to do. I'm not regretting that at the moment, because it's like, it was cheap, but I'd quite like a disc version just because.
Right.
And second, there's no way I was going to get to that anytime soon.
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, I eventually worked out the tactic. It was just like the new type of enemies. There's one enemy that goes berserk and basically one-shots you if you're not defending, which I solved by just defending, basically. You just defend until you have a full set of Braves, and then just use like 2 out of my 3. One of my team has damage reduction, so she never needs to defend. She can just absorb it. One of them has always misses. The first physical attack against them always misses, providing you've set it up beforehand. And then one of them has damage reduction and counter. So I was like, that pretty much solved that problem. And then the other problem was like these other enemies that paralyze you all the time. And I was just like, well, I guess I'll just go back to this town, buy 4 paralyzed prevention equipment, and put that on everyone. Problem solved.
I can grind this area fine.
Yeah. So I might actually be able to progress the story again.
But you know what? In some ways, I kind of like it when games at least have those, because I think, like, at least with Final Fantasy 13 and quite a reasonable number of modern RPGs that I seem to have been playing of late, where it's just like the need to pay attention to that stuff just seems to be not there.
Yeah.
You know, you can sort of just deal with it. Fuck it, it's another thing that's hurting my character. I don't need to care. Mash auto attack.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing about these new enemies that I've just come across. It's like I've suddenly realised that poison is actually useful. Because like, when do you ever use poison ever in any game? But I was like, hang on.
We've used it a lot in FF7.
Not really intentionally. It's just a side effect of Bio 2.
I guess we got lucky on a couple of occasions against bosses where it's just like, oh, he's poisoned!
And it does naffle damage in Final Fantasy anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas in Braided Fight, it actually does a fair bit of damage.
Mm.
And I discovered because of that enemy that goes berserk and then I just basically defend for 4 turns, apparently they're really easy to poison. So I was just like, I can just poison it, and then while I'm defending, it's still taking damage. It's actually worthwhile. A tactic. Although I've now got to the point that one of my healer has a special move that it just basically max heals everyone. But the trouble is, it doesn't just max heal everyone, it max heals, it refills magic points, and it gives you brave points.
Oh, wow.
And it also revives anyone that's down.
That's pretty damn effective.
So all my healer does now is basically cast
that all the time?
But it just... The way you earn that special ability is by casting Cure on someone who's damaged 10 times. So all my healer does is just cast Cure all every turn to keep everyone healthy, and then whenever that comes up, it's like, oh look, now everyone has all their magic points back as well. It's a bit too easy at that point.
Does that carry over? Do magic point loss carry over? Do you have to, like, say at the end of a fight?
What
you haven't? Is it like FF7 in the sense that when you expend your magic points, you don't just get them back?
Yeah, it's a resource,
right?
But now with that,
yeah, that does negate that a little.
Although you do still have drain magic points off the enemies, like the black mages have that, so you can refill it that way. And like the sword, what's it called? Spell sword has that. That was actually one of the early builds that I had that was quite awesome. Was the spell sword with like. They have a passive ability that makes it so that at the start of the battle, their sword has magic point draining. So you can just quickly hit an enemy, get some magic points back, and then use those magic points to change your sword magic to something useful. So you don't actually expend any magic points.
We are, I suppose, wasting that turn to do that.
Yeah, but it's only like one part of a 4 brave turn if you've been defending or whatever.
True.
It's quite nifty.
Or it's just a start and you're trying to one-hit it, I guess.
Yeah, it was quite a good plan. But that's been superseded by these other classes that I'm working through. There's so many goddamn jobs, and the trouble is, you unless you look it up, you don't know what the high level job abilities are going to be. So you don't know whether you want them, which is the problem with like the freelancer job, the first one you start with. Once you get that all the way up to level 10, it has plus 10% job points as a passive.
Oh wow! So you kind of want that.
So yeah, you want that. But if you didn't know that, there was no reason for you to think that grinding freelancer, the first basic class you get, all the way up to 10, would be worthwhile. But then you get it, and it takes 10% off the time to level up every other class.
Yeah, that seems quite valuable.
So yeah, do that. Top tips.
Top tips.
Now we should stop talking because this podcast has gone long already.
Have we gone over?
Unless Dan has anything to say.
Yeah, we've gone over by a way. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Do you have anything to talk about, Dan?
I played all the way through Max Payne 3 from start to finish.
Again? Really?
Yeah. And I played Skyrim.
I've been thinking about playing Skyrim as well. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Because I kind of don't want to get back into that. Although, also, I wanted to...
I sort of don't believe you.
The reason why I started thinking about playing it again was because I just wanted to see what the mod situation was like now. Like, how awesome can you make Skyrim at this point?
You can make it insane at this point.
Yeah,
there's some ridiculous screenshots about.
Some of the mods are pretty impressive.
I mean, it seems to have taken over from GTA.
Machine.
They've taken over from GTA 4 in the ridiculous modding. Like the frame rate killing mods of Doom. But yeah, I think you could put some pretty decent ones on that wouldn't kill your frame rate, and it would look pretty amazing. I mean, because like we were saying when it came out, like the level of detail stuff was pretty fucked, pretty much in the base game.
Like so I think waterfalls just turned into giant white squares.
It's just
I think they've at least fixed that.
Yeah. They were obviously. That was obviously a carryover from the Xbox version, I suppose. That didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
That they
Anyway.
didn't put a scaler on.
So yeah, I have no real comment on Skyrim. It's still Skyrim.
Right.
I played through a whole Dwemer city.
The dwarves.
Yeah, and it was like, well, this looks cool, but there's nothing here except like
It
those
wasn't
sphere
the
things.
one that you actually go to in the story.
No, I think it was a side quest. Oh, it might have been. I don't know. Which part of the story do you mean? It was quite a big city. You had to put a lexicon thing in it, but I think it was a different lexicon from the lexicon that's in the like main quest. It was just some other random one. Yeah,
because there's the really big sort of dwarven combined thing where you go through a dwarven ruin and then you enter that underground world.
No, it wasn't that one. No, it was near Riften, like south of Riften.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure there's fucking dwarven stuff all over the place.
Yeah. Anyway. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Those are probably the cooler actual dungeons, because the normal boring
cool
Catacomb dungeons are like, here comes the more goddamn zombies.
Yeah, more zombies, constant.
not that
zombies.
it's not like that in the Dwarven. It's like, here comes the more goddamn spider bots.
Yeah, that's all it is. Spider bots, and they're not like scary spider bots like the ones in Deus Ex who are terrifying.
No.
They're like, yeah, like so. Yeah,
They step on you.
Well, they do still zap you, but they don't kill you in like 2 seconds like the goddamn terrifying ones from Deus Ex.
It's because those ones in Deus Ex had fucking plasma, and plasma was the most instant kill thing in Deus Ex ever. Because it burns you as well.
And they made the most horrifying noise. The only thing worse than them was probably the greasels. Yeah, they're probably.
And they had plasma as well.
Or the giant dog things were pretty bad. The dog version of the greasels. What were they called? I don't know. They would like chop your legs off instantly. Those things.
Yeah.
And you had to basically hit them with rockets. Anyway, never mind. And yeah, Max Payne 3 is really good. I think that reviews were a little bit unfair on that one. I think they were focusing on his whininess maybe a bit too much. When actually that it builds atmosphere quite nicely if you play it in one go.
That's not maybe the best solution to the problem. It's like, if you play this entire game in one
you could do it in a few chunks, but if you don't, I don't know what was going on with, but it's a really good. Mechanically, it's good. Play it in easy mode because I think maybe like the difficulty is fucked, but mechanically it's really good.
Right.
So just play it in easy mode.
Everyone complained that ammo was a problem.
Yeah.
Even in normal mode.
That's not a problem in easy mode, so just go straight to that. And what else? And the environments are awesome, so it's cool. I don't know why people are down on it. Yeah. So really, really cool. The story was like good, like intriguing going through, but had a bit of a kind of whimper ending, I thought, for me. It wasn't like a big reveal twist thing. Well, there was a sort of a twist, but it was a bit dampened, possibly, by... And then it's like, oh, okay, done. Done beans. Next. Yeah.
Done beans.
Yep, we're done with this beans of a podcast.
Indeed.
Whatever that actually means.
Well, you mean that we're going to consume it and then fart our way out?
I had a friend I worked with at Feature Space who would just say beans after everything. Done beans was the most common one. So when something was finished, he would say done beans. But then he would just say beans after everything. And then occasionally it would actually make sense. He'd say something like coffee beans. And
Coffee beans.
And he's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I just wanted to walk into a room with like a hot pan of beans and just go, done beans.
Done beans.
Beans.
Exactly. Beans.
It's like, and you're done as the verb, like done beans.
Done beans. Anyway, that's the end of this podcast. Thanks for listening. Wait to this super extended edition.
Can you get well done beans? Or like rare beans?
Probably.
Medium rare beans.
Podcast done beans. Catch you next time.
That should just be what I named this episode, just done beans.
Can be. I'll have to link it to Paul.
Done beans.
They made it out of the goddamn rock tunnel without dying.
Good.
Hooray.
What? Just end this goddamn podcast.
The end. I've said it several times.
Dan's done his outro. Rob, that means you have to push a button.
Rock tunnel?
Talking about Pokemon again. Don't worry about it.
Oh, right, okay. Manganese.
Oh, I do so love little kittens. They're so cute and fluffy.